Securing the 2025 Masters Tournament, Rory McIlroy clinched his first ever green jacket diesel and completes the career Grand Slam after a challenging final round. McIlroy entered a sudden death playoff against England's Justin Rose, demonstrating remarkable composure. McIlroy sank a birdie putt on the first playoff hole to claim victory on Sunday. This win not only ended his 11-year major championship drought, but also solidified his status among golf's elite. Welcome into Wire to Wire. He is Diesel. I'm Cole Bryson. It is a Overreaction Monday right here on the Fan Upstate. A ton to overreact to. We'll get your overreactions at 5 p.m. right here on Wire to Wire. But what a day it was yesterday, Diesel. What a weekend it was. Just remarkable to look back on in terms of what an incredible sporting event was held in Augusta National. And I got my wish. Rory McIlroy, the golf gods looked out for Rory, looked out for me and everyone else who was pulling for Rory to get the green jacket, and he did.
And what a roller coaster of emotions it was watching Rory in that last round. I mean, he had some really bad shots, and we'll get into some of the statistics of just how bad he was off the tee this weekend. But also he hit some absolutely amazing shots, some pull it out of your you-know-where shots that make you say, how did he even do that? There was one, the seventh, I believe. And he hit it over / through / around some trees, put it within like 10 feet from the hole. Even he was like, how did I do that?
How does a golf ball do that? How does a golf ball do what happened yesterday on 7? Diesel, I have so many thoughts on what happened. We're going to spend pretty much the entire hour with our reactions, the reactions of the Tolos, audio of what it sounded like yesterday, and then one take that I have when it comes to Rory McIlroy coming up at 3:45, Diesel. But my three takeaways, and then we'll get into what happened. My three takeaways are very simple. Number one, this performance was legendary by Rory, not because of it being flawless, but because of exactly what you just said. Exactly what you just said, the ups and the downs, yet he still found a way to win. I don't know if there's another sport on the planet where you can play as bad as Rory did at times and play as good and still. It was remarkable, not because of him being outstanding, but just because of finding a way to get it done.
Yeah, 62% accuracy off the tee, 65% greens in regulation, 4 double bogeys over his weekend, 5 bogeys. I mean, if Rory tried so hard to give that away,
hard.
with all of those bogeys and double bogeys and missed putts. I mean, the 5-footer to win the thing in on 18 to miss it. You just had this thought in the back of your head of, oh no, here we go again. Right? Like we talked about it last week with the NCAA tournament. I think it was specifically, we were talking about the Duke game, and we were saying when somebody misses that kind of shot or misses that kind of opportunity or has a night like they're having, you just feel the inevitable, right? You felt inevitable that history was going to repeat itself and the nation of England was going to victimize the island of Ireland yet again. They've only been doing it for like 1,000 years. Man, and Justin Rose almost did it to him again.
When he missed that putt on 18 for par, I'm telling you, man, I just thought,
that's it. That's it, right?
I mean, you and I were texting. I said, oh, no. At that point, and I look, I know this sounds outlandish to say, Diesel, at that point, I thought to myself, Rory McIlroy will never do it. He'll never win at Augusta.
Because you felt like the course was just in his head.
It just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
He couldn't do it. So that was my first takeaway. Second takeaway from what happened this weekend, and Tolos, want to hear from you as well at 844-FAN-PHONE, also on the stream where 58 Tolos are already watching. Diesel, my second takeaway, we better bring the same energy towards Bryson DeChambeau and his collapse as we would have today if Rory would have collapsed. Because if Rory collapsed, like you just said, that's all we talk about all day today. But guess what? Bryson collapsed. He collapsed in the water, right? Literally in the water. So
see, I thought Bryson's collapse was the best possible thing that could happen for Rory, right?
I agree.
In the sense that Rory's competing against the golf course in his own head, but he would have also been competing against Bryson if they were essentially neck and neck for the majority of that round. And I feel like Rory would have played worse if he had to also battle Bryson head to head. Now they didn't talk to each other.
Oh my
I think that took some of the pressure off of Rory a little bit, which still got to him. Here's a crazy stat, Cole.
Yeah.
If you look at Rory's 4 double bogeys on the weekend, you have to go all the way down to 12th place. And I mean, every golfer behind Rory, all the way down to 12th place, to add up the total number of double bogeys from the rest of the field to match Rory's 4. You have to go all the way down to 46th to find one golfer who had more double bogeys than Rory McIlroy. And there were only 3 golfers in the entire cut for Saturday and Sunday rounds who had more double bogeys than Rory McIlroy did at 5. Actually, 2, because Rory had the 3rd highest number of double bogeys.
That's a wild stat. That is a wild stat to hear. Also, Diesel, look, we talked about it last week. I'm not pulling for Bryson. I'm not a Bryson fan. I don't like Bryson DeChambeau. I was hoping he choked yesterday. He did. So my second takeaway, look, let's just bring the same energy with Bryson as we would have with Rory, please, because Bryson did not play his best. Third takeaway, then we'll get into what happened. Diesel, in my mind, golf needed this as badly as you and I need oxygen.
Mm-hmm.
With Tiger in the rearview mirror, golf needed the redemption story. These stories, by the way, don't happen often in sports.
Yeah.
What happened this weekend was remarkable. And I just think that the game of golf, and the golf purist out there will say, oh no, every Masters is great. Golf could not have needed this more. This was the best sporting event that I've watched in a very long time. This was absolutely huge for the game of golf.
Well, we're going to get into this a little bit later on in the show, Cole, but the question is, how long is it going to be until we get an amazing moment like this again in the Masters, in the U.S. Open? Who knows? It's going to be a long time, because if you look at the active golfers who are playing really well right now, who are young enough to still make a push for the Golf Grand Slam, it's going to be a while, because none of them are all that close. Jordan Spieth is the only one that's really close.
520, by the way, is when we'll get into that.
Yep.
I'm excited for that, because I agree with you. It is absolutely something to look at, because what just happened doesn't happen often. To your point, Rory's only the 6th to ever do it. So, again, I put a ton of emphasis on people like me who aren't golf gurus, aren't golf guys, who are just absolutely starstruck, Diesel, with what happened this weekend. I'm telling you, it was just remarkable how it happened. Boy, what a roller coaster ride it was on Sunday. Let's go back even further than that. Saturday was fantastic. Saturday was remarkable.
Yeah.
And Rose kind of took a little bit of a dip on Saturday, came back with a resurgence on Sunday. And Diesel, when I saw the pairing and we watched what happened Saturday night, and I said, okay, it's going to be Rory and Bryson together, I thought to myself, I don't know if this is going to be good for Rory or not. I really don't, because Bryson was right on his tail. Rory comes out Sunday, and that's where we'll start. When he double bogeyed, I had just sat down in the press box and opened my laptop at Bristol Motor Speedway yesterday, Diesel. And when I watched him double bogey that first hole, I closed my laptop. I just said, it's over. I really thought it was over. And somehow, some way to recover from that, watching that double bogey on hole 1, he came back and went par, birdie, birdie, which was phenomenal. And then you mentioned what he did on, 7? Birdied on 9 and 10, bogeyed on 11, par on 12, double bogey, Diesel on 13, 14. I thought it was slipping away again, right? I thought, oh my gosh, it's slipping away again. birdie on 15, par on 16, birdie again on 17. And then when he got to hole 18, I really thought, was it a 5-foot putt on 18 in regulation?
Yeah, it's right there.
I thought he's going to do it.
Well, he even had a read. He had a free read from Bryson DeChambeau, who was putting from, a lot farther than he was, but he had a read on the break.
Sure.
I mean, albeit not the exact same angle, but close enough. And it just, I was gutted. I was gutted for Rory on 18 when he missed that, because, you felt like this was kind of the Rebels versus Darth Vader, right? You thought, all right, Justin Rose, who just came back and had an incredible fourth round at the Masters, he is going to go on and just absolutely smoke Rory. Rory's going to bogey again or double bogey on 18 to end this thing in a playoff hole. And you just felt like, man, it's slipping away from him. Now, truthfully, we have no reason to hate Justin Rose other than the fact that we're America and he's English. But now I really want to see Justin Rose go win.
Me too.
Because he's finished second in the Masters twice. Third time, actually. This year was his third time finishing second in the Masters. And now you want to see him go and win it, because he had an amazing first round. I mean, he lit the field on fire in the first and the fourth round. You said it, his little lull there in the middle. You feel like that guy deserves to win 100%. One now, but he's on the wrong side of 40. And most golfers in their mid-40s are not really pushing for the Masters. This might have been his best chance.
Isn't it wild, Diesel, that golf consists of so many what-ifs? Like, the game of golf consists of and I know football and other sports, there are what-ifs, like what if this would have happened, what if this would have happened, but in golf, man, like just from this past weekend, there are a million what-if scenarios. What if Justin Rose didn't have that lull on Saturday? Would he have ran away with it on Sunday? Because he played really good yesterday. What if Rory, Diesel, didn't have that bad second 9 on Thursday, right, that you and I watched? Yeah. He might have been in the lead on Friday and Saturday. It might have been a different story. I thought the lead that Rory had at one time on Saturday, where he led by 4 strokes, I thought, boy, if he can go into Sunday up 3, it's his. However, going back to what we said a minute ago to open the show, I've never seen an athlete, I've never seen Diesel, somebody that can perform as great as Rory can, but at the same time can have almost epic-like meltdowns. Golf is more of a mental game than anyone will ever understand. And I know we had the conversation last week, the debate about which is more difficult, hitting a baseball or a golf ball. Watching Rory struggle mentally and just go through what he went through, I don't know if I can recall a sporting event in the last decade where I was as plugged in and excited about what happened yesterday.
I mean, the question is, how do you hit some of the amazing shots that he hit? We talked about, what happened on 7. We could talk about the approach shot on 15 when he put that insane amount of draw on the ball, landed it like 25, 30 feet from the hole, and that thing was like on a tractor beam going straight for the hole. Sure. And he had an opportunity. I think he had a chance to eagle that hole. He ended up only birdieing. Or maybe it was another hole where he had a chance to putt for eagle, and he ended up only birdieing that hole. He had some amazing shots, and you would think, watching somebody hit those shots, you would say, oh, well, there's clearly some magic in the golf ball today. Yeah. And Rory's gonna walk away with this thing and win by 10. But that's not what happened. He would have an amazing hole, and he would follow it by a disastrous hole. And it just it didn't make sense the way that he achieved what he achieved, but that made for the best possible drama that you could have, right? I mean, we had PGA versus Live, at least going into Sunday, with Bryson versus Rory. We had Bryson falling off, his epic meltdown. Rory's just up and down roller coaster, had opportunity after opportunity to put this thing away. I remember, I was sitting with family at a barbecue yesterday, and people were saying, "Oh, Rory up 3 with 3 holes to go. That's pretty much a lock, right?" I was like, "Well, I mean, in theory, yeah, unless you just have an epic meltdown over the last 3 holes, and then what happens? He has a meltdown over the last 3 holes.
It's like the more rounds of golf, the more holes he plays, it's like it's just going to be more of a roller coaster. It's like if you could get Rory for 6 holes, I mean, he might just blow the field away, right? But the more golf you give that guy, the harder and harder it gets. Phone lines are open, 844-326-3663. Let's first go to Madcraft, who wants to weigh in.
Hey, buddy. Yeah.
What's your name?
You still think baseball's harder a little bit?
I heard him. I was answering the phone. Is he Madcraft? Do I still think a baseball is harder to hit? Was that your question?
No. I was saying, do you still think baseball's harder? I was just cracking a joke. But listen, what an incredible final round that was.
Yeah.
But hey, listen, let me tell you, I was sitting there and I was watching him go down the 18th, and I was just sitting there thinking of my mother. You know, I played a lot of rounds of golf, and I looked at her and I said, all he has to do, Mama, is just put this ball into the middle of the green. That's all he has to do. Don't go flag hunting. Don't do nothing. And when that ball went up into the air and went into that bunker,
yeah,
I cried. I started crying. Because I knew that he was going to wind up doing something silly. And sure enough, if he didn't, and he missed that putt, but that was incredible.
Is there more? Let's ask this question. Maybe we can revisit this tomorrow. Is there an athlete on planet Earth that's more emotionally challenging to watch than Rory McIlroy?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't believe so.
Oh my gosh!
Hey, real quick before I get off of here, do you enjoy your weekend at the race?
I did. It was fun yesterday. It's a good time. As huge. I was just telling JB in the chat, I didn't realize how big it was. How big the stadium was.
Those cables holding up the jumbotron.
Yeah,
are incredible. But anyways, I'll let y'all go. Have a good one.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, Madcraft. You know, and the wild thing is, Cole, Rory got his start right in the height of Tiger Mania, right? And you would think that somebody who came up in that era would be able to watch somebody like Tiger and learn from him as much as he could and apply that level of focus once Tiger finally aged out of the game and moved on and his career started to taper off. And Rory would be the guy right after that. And then that's not what happened. He went on a super long major winning drought. You know, he should have been dominating the sport for the last 5 to 10 years, but that's not how it happened. He came on like gangbusters, started winning majors at a young age, and then crickets for a decade.
But did Jack Nicklaus not hit the nail on the head in that audio we play on the show? Was it Thursday or Friday? Where he said, I'm picking Rory to win, but Rory has lacked that discipline to be able to stay true to the course and not go do his own thing, just like that putt in regulation on 18. Let's go back to the phone lines at 844-326-3663. Brian wants to weigh in. What's up, Brian?
Hey, Cole.
What's up, man?
This is Brian. Brian's I'm over Perry and Greer. How you doing?
Good, man.
I just had to say that it really boils my blood to see someone not from the great country of the United States of America win the Masters. I mean, it just rips me to pieces to see that shit.
Hey, let's kill that audio. Come on, Brian. You can't be dropping bombs like that on the radio.
Had to hit the
Come
dump
on,
button
Brian.
in the first segment of the show.
That's the quickest way to get blocked from the show for a while.
Look, I know he's not American, but you know what, though? At least he represents the game of golf in such a formidable way. Man.
Hey, he's not an American, but he's backed PGA. He stayed true to PGA while a whole bunch of American golfers have gone over and accepted money from the Saudis.
Sure,
Brian. So I don't know if you're still listening, and I assume you are. You got a lot of Americans who have gone over and taken blood money from the Saudis. Some people don't seem to have a problem with that. I do. I know Cole does. I know a lot of our listeners do. Rory McIlroy, I think, has been more true and more loyal than any of those guys.
100%.
So that's why I don't ever want to see Bryson DeChambeau ever win another major.
That's right. And I'm not a Bryson fan either. I
can't stand him.
I don't know. His little attitude and his cockiness. Oh, Rory didn't speak to me. Rory didn't speak to me one time yesterday. Oh, well, Bryson, it's golf. You're a competitor.
You know why I also don't like him? It's because he's a Johnny-come-lately on the YouTube thing, right? Bryson DeChambeau starts his YouTube channel, and because he's Bryson DeChambeau, he can get on any course he wants. He can get any guest he wants. I mean, he had Donald Trump on his channel, right? Yeah. And that's fantastic. That's an amazing get that no one else can get. But you know what he also did? He waited for all those hard-working YouTubers to create this genre that people watch, the conversational, funny, YouTube golfers waited for this thing to blow up. And then he said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to drop my name in the hat and just pick up. And I don't like that, man. I don't like people waiting for someone else to do all the work and then step right in and wave their flag around and say, I'm here. You need to be watching me instead of all that.
I just couldn't be more happy for Rory, man. Like I told you on Wednesday, I told you on Thursday, I was pulling for the guy. I wanted to see that redemption story because you just don't get that. And we'll get back into it in the 520 segment, but you don't get what happened yesterday in many sports, Diesel. Like it truly takes decades for us as sports fans to get what we got this weekend. And if you don't like Rory winning, I'm sorry, but I don't think, like, name a better Masters. What was it, 19 when Tiger won it? Okay, that was fantastic.
Scotty being as dominant as he was. What was that last year? Or was that the year before?
It was last year. And look, I thought last year what Scotty did last year was fantastic. But in terms of storyline and getting more people in the game of golf, you could not have scripted a better tournament than what you got this past week.
We're gonna have more dominant rounds, right? But I'm not sure that we'll ever get a story as good as what we just had, at least not for a very, very long time. When we come back, Cole, on the other side of the break, we spent a lot of time talking about the Masters. Now let's hear from everybody involved, all the audio that we could gather of what happened yesterday and over the weekend. Next on the Fan Upstate. Cole, I'm trying to think back on the last collective sports moment that we all had that made everyone feel good about what we just watched. I mean, not Brian, by the way, who called in and was dropping 4-letter bombs on us.
Yeah,
but
no more bombs next time.
Yeah, with the Super Bowl, the crowd is always divided with so many events like that. And like, I'm thinking back as a kid, Cole, and again, this is not reality, but this is a movie. I remember how excited I was the first time I watched the Mighty Ducks and they won the tournament.
Yeah.
And like when you see those moments that everyone can get behind, those are rare. And that's what sport can bring us that we don't really get a whole lot of these days in this country. So we spent the entire first segment talking about the Masters and how Rory went up and down and up and down. Now let's hear from Rory himself. We'll hear from Bryson. We'll hear from some of the patrons who were there. And let's go right now.
I was going to ask you real quick. Any audio you have on that side, so I can get your slider up?
Yeah, let's do that.
You start. I'll let you go first with your audio. That way we won't get them mixed up. I've got you hot, ready to go.
This was Rory McIlroy in his post-round press conference talking about that very thing, the ups and downs and the roller coaster that his career has been. And the words that he uses to describe finally getting this victory after all of these tries, I think sums up just how special this moment was.
I probably didn't understand myself. I didn't understand why I got myself in a great position in 2011, and I probably didn't understand why I let it slip in a way. But I think just having a little more self-reflection, that experience going through the hardships of tough losses and all that. I would, and I would say to him, just stay the course, just keep believing. And I would say that to any young boy or girl that's listening to this, or, I've literally made my dreams come true today.
He's tied. He's got a 8.4 average finishing mark at the Masters. He's got a top 10 average finish at the Masters, which is truly incredible.
Yeah.
At a course that is as difficult as it is, that it's as high pressure as it is, to be a top 10 golfer at that course is truly incredible. Now, I would say, Rory, I think you still got some work to do when it comes to him saying handling the pressure of being on this course and needing those experiences of all the heartbreak to be able to get here. Rory, you still got some work to do in that sense, because you almost gave it away again, but ultimately you didn't, and that's what really matters.
It's awesome. I just, like, when you hear him talk, man, how are you not just blown away with the guy? I mean, he's just so put together. Look, I'm not saying his personal life's put together, but I'm just saying in general, he's so well-spoken. He says the right things. He encourages people. He just seems like a freaking great guy. And again, that's why I pulled for him, and I'm glad I did.
Here's some audio, Cole, of the shot that might be the shot of the tournament, to be honest. If it wasn't for all of the incredible shots that Rory hit in his final round to be able to get into position, Patrick Reed eagled number 17, Cole, and you can't see the look on his face, but the shot goes in, a one hop on the green in the hole, and then the look on his face is like, where'd the ball go?
Yeah.
Where'd it go? Here's what that sounded like.
Perfect tee shot. That's what Rory needs off this tee. This is going for it. Oh, Reed! He's holding it up. Patrick Reed moves to 9 under par with that second shot.
That was probably the most miraculous shot of the entire tournament. Just one hops it 10 feet shy of the hole, and then bam, it's in.
Golf,
and
man.
He was like, wait a minute, I did what? I did what? He probably made himself another $500,000 with that swing, Cole. That's wild to see.
Yeah.
Let's go to, again, we're going to have this stuff kind of mixed up, but Bryson DeChambeau on Rory and him not talking for the majority of that last round.
How's he doing? Do you know?
No idea. Didn't talk to me once all day.
Did you try and initiate conversation with Rory at all?
He wouldn't talk to me.
Oh, I wasn't talking to me. Oh, I wasn't talking. Oh my God, he wouldn't talk. He sounded so offended that Rory wouldn't talk to him on the biggest stage of his freaking professional career. Diesel, that is the biggest stage in the world. What's Bryson want? Him to share some animal crackers with him and juice boxes and
cheese and wine.
I love your YouTube videos, Bryson. I love that weird looking hat that you used to wear all the time and got made fun of. Like come on, enough of Bryson.
Like, just say, look, I understand he's in the zone. I don't want to mess with his zone. I didn't have a great round. He was on fire. I didn't want to mess with him. I didn't want to get into his head. That's what you need to say, Bryson. God, Bryson. He might be the most punchable guy in golf right now, by far. I mean, replacing Phil Mickelson. Let's go to clip number 2 that you have here on Harry Diamond as his caddy.
Harry grew up together in a tiny town playing childhood games together. What does it feel like to have him standing beside you today when you achieved that childhood dream?
Amen. Yeah, I've known Harry since I was 7 years old. I met him on the putting green at Hollywood Golf Club. We've had so many good times together. He's been like a big brother to me the whole way through my life. And to be able to share this with him after all the close calls that we've had, all the crap that he's had to take from people that don't know anything about the game. This one is, just as much his as it is mine. He's a massive part of what I do, and I couldn't think of anyone better to share it with than him.
I mean, come on.
How do you not choke up a little bit?
How do you not freaking choke up listening to that?
How do you not see him coming off of the green and seeing his buddy Shane Lowry, 2 fellow Irishmen, embrace and just the excitement that they had for one another? That was truly special as well. Cole, I don't know if you saw the photos, and I'm sure you did, but the ceremony afterwards where Rory got his jacket, he's posing with his family, and his little girl can't just smile for this moment. She is like mean mugging the camera for as hard as she possibly can, which was absolutely adorable to see his little girl out there. But here was Rory's message to Poppy, his daughter.
I don't know if I can play it. Fair warning. This one's the one that gets you. I mean, this
I haven't heard this yet.
You hadn't heard this?
No.
Oh.
And last but certainly not least, over to my left, my family, my team. They've been on this journey with me the whole way through. They know the burden that I've carried to come here every year and try again. And the one thing I would say to my daughter Poppy that's sitting over there, never give up on your dreams. Never, ever give up on your dreams. Keep coming back, keep working hard, and if you put your mind to it, you can do anything. I love you.
Yeah. Oh, look at your arms. I mean,
football, man, bourbon, man stuff. Yeah.
Wow. That's, I mean, again, I've said this 1 million times. How do you not pull for that guy?
That is, I mean, what he said there, Cole, is a metaphor for the game of golf in general. You keep coming back again and again and again, and you have so many frustrations. And if you take the game seriously, even if you're not a scratch golfer, right, you will still go out on the course and remember the bad shot you hit on this hole 5 years ago. It'll still eat at you, and you want to play it right every single time. And even the best in the world struggle. The best in the world struggle on courses that they have played dozens and dozens of times. Just the pressure there is so high. Let's go to what it sounded like when he missed the would-be tournament winner on 18. He was up 1 at this point. This was a putt for par, 5 feet, just a slight break right to left, and then this happens.
everybody in the crowd, Diesel, with their
Hands
on their head
Oh,
in disbelief of what just happened. But it's just, again, it goes back to what you just said. It's just up and down roller coaster. And at that point right there yesterday, I was so upset. I said he can't do it. But you know what I did take away from what his caddy told him? I don't know if you've heard this or not, Diesel, but after that, he made the next putt to the bogey, right? And then it was the playoff. His caddy told him, walking back up or on the golf cart ride back up to the tee box, he said, look, Rory, or look, mate, whatever they say over there, and look, mate, if I would have told you on Monday that you'd be in this position, you would have taken it 10 out of 10 times. And Rory said after the tournament yesterday that just reset his whole mind. Talking about a caddy saying something that made that big of a difference, that just gives you goosebumps.
Yeah, caddy's job is to do more than just carry the bag and shut up.
Yeah.
You know, a caddy is essentially a therapist for golfers.
God, what a hard job
in the most pressure cooker situations they can put themselves in. Here was Rory in his post press conference interview asking a question to the media.
I'd like to start this press conference with a question myself. What are we all going to talk about next year?
He's right. He's right. That's all that was talked about. Every golfer all weekend was, is he going to do it? Is he going to do it, Diesel? That's great audio.
Jim Nantz here on the shot of a lifetime call.
The journey it's taken to get here, for all this history.
The lone journey is over. McIlroy has his masterpiece.
Whew. Great call. The 2019 Tiger call was the return to glory. That was a good one as well. But that one right there, man, that's really good.
Absolutely. Cole, did we get to numbers 6 and 7, or is that different from what we've already
Let's see here. Tournament Younger Self, we got that. We got Nats. The only ones, and I know we're up against carrying the burden. This one's really touching here.
Can you expand on the level of difficulty or torture or what it's been like coming back here every year, people speaking about you winning it, not doing it, and I suppose you probably couldn't say things at the time that you thought. How difficult was that in reality?
It's very difficult. I think I've carried that burden since August 2014. It's been 11 years. It's nearly 11 years. I'm not just about winning my next major, but the career Grand Slam. You know, trying to join a group of 5 players to do it. Watching a lot of my peers get green jackets in the process. It's been difficult, and I've tried to approach this tournament with the most positive attitude each and every time that I've shown up. And I think just the sort of cumulative experience that I've gained coming back here each and every year, I feel like I get a little more comfortable with the shots needed. I talked about it at the start of the week, but there's talking about it and actually doing it. And today was difficult. I was unbelievably nervous this morning. Really nervous on the first hole, as you witnessed with the double. But as I said, that sort of calmed me down, and I was able to bounce back and show, that resilience that I've talked about a lot. And it was a heavy weight to carry, and thankfully now I don't have to carry it, and it frees me up. And I know I'm coming back here every year, which is lovely.
Yeah, I know a lot of people have made that prediction, Cole, that now that he's finally done it, that he's going to play lights out on this course in the future. Brian says, don't worry about it, Rory. I missed some of those putts that are close to the hole too.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because that is where we're going in the very next segment. Now that the chains are gone, per se, is this the making of, in his last 5 to whatever it is years of his career, 5 to 10 years that we see Rory in the majors or in the PGA Tour, are we going to see a different Rory McIlroy now because of the burden that was lifted yesterday? We'll get into that next.
Six there yesterday, set up an eagle. Is this enough? It is. Oh, here it comes. The shot of a lifetime.
The shot of a lifetime, Diesel. That was the one we were talking about back in the very first segment. Just an incredible shot, an incredible day for Rory McIlroy. And you teased it going in to the break in the very last segment, and that's where I want to go, because you mentioned the drought in the first segment that Rory had and why we didn't see this level of dominance from, 2013 to 2023. Like, did Rory leave the game of golf? What happened? Where was he? He still competed. He was still in majors. He was really good. I mean, almost won the U.S. Open last year, right? But he melted down, and Bryson took it from him, Diesel. So we know that he's been competitive, but there is, and I know this is a very popular take right now, but there is a lot to be said about playing free in sports. Once you win your first championship, once you win your first green jacket, once you win your first World Series, that burden, those chains are not there. So from that perspective, now that the chains are gone per se off of Rory McIlroy, Diesel, do you think in this latter part of his career that we get maybe 5-10 more years of Rory, whatever we get? Maybe it's not 10, maybe it's more like 6 or 8, but that we could see a looser version of Rory, not as tight, not making as many mistakes, and maybe he goes on. Maybe this story isn't over yet.
Well, I think Rory's still going to play imperfect golf, right? He's not a machine. He misses a lot of greens. He misses a lot of fairways, but he also outdrives the field by like 10 yards, right? You look at some of the statistics from this past weekend, and Rory is beating everybody by 10 yards off the tee. He's going to be able to maintain that maybe for a couple of more years before that level of physical, peak is going to start to wear off. Now, here's where it's going to get tough for Rory after that. Is when he loses that extra 10 yards, which helps every single golfer who has it, is he going to be able to maintain with the short irons and around the green? I don't know. It's going to be hard to see. Now, it maybe if his power starts to diminish a little bit, he actually starts to do what a lot of football players will say they do. You're 5, 6, 7 years into the league, and you're not the physical athlete that used to be. So you have to start playing smarter. Does that bring that cone, that spray of Rory McIlroy that's this wide? Does it narrow it down a little bit and put him in a position where he doesn't have to dig out of so many holes? Because he showed this week he's great at digging out of holes.
I certainly hope so, Diesel, because like I said in the very first segment, if you just tuned in, I think what happened this weekend, and I think Rory McIlroy, despite being an American, is so great for the game of golf. He's just the 6th player in the history of the sport to complete the modern career Grand Slam, right? Only 6. It was dramatic. It was ugly. He needed 11 starts at the Masters to do it. He won the 3rd leg at the 2014 Open Championship. Diesel, none of the other 5 men to complete the slam needed more than 3 tries, and they're missing a bit. Rory needed 11. We talked about the decade gap. It's just remarkable.
Yeah, he was in his head a lot. He said it in that interview clip we played in the last segment that you try to remain as positive as you can, and that's specific to this golf course. But those things start to creep out. Like football, they say is the ultimate team sport. Well, golf is the ultimate solo sport. You're out there on an island by yourself. Yeah, you can you can say that I've got my caddy here, and my caddy keeps me grounded, and he helps me figure out shot selection and all these sorts of things. But you're the only one actually out there swinging a golf club.
You are.
And it all falls on you, no matter what anyone says.
And by the way, McIlroy is the first European player to reach 5 major wins since Nick Faldo at the 1992 Open. And, the first European player in men's golf history to complete the slam. Diesel, he was already looked at as one of golf's greats. Everybody picked him this weekend, from the Tiger Woods to Phil Mickelsons to the Jack Nicklauses of the world. They all revered Rory as one of the Mount Rushmores. However, the green jacket, whether you love him or hate him, the green jacket solidified it. It slammed the door shut. And now, regardless of your allegiance toward the guy, he is now one of the greatest to ever play the game.
Yeah, he's eliminated the but. He's eliminated. Right. Well, Rory is great, but he never won at the Masters. That is gone. And I think this is going to take a tremendous burden off of him. And he is going to play freer and just tear things up over the next couple of years. Granted, Scotty Scheffler is going to have a thing or two to say about that. When we come back, Cole, speaking of tearing things up, and by that I mean his potential college career, Nico Iamaleava, former quarterback of the Tennessee Volunteers, I think, Cole, actually just did a great thing for the sport of college football. I'll explain why I think that next. We started hearing the buzz about this late last week, Cole. Thursday and Friday. Over the weekend is when everything came to fruition. Nico Iamaleava, quarterback of the Tennessee Volunteers, tried to pull a Bane with his football program.
No, stay here. I'm in charge.
Do you feel in charge?
I've paid you a small fortune.
This gives you power over me?
But what he actually got was a Willy Wonka.
You get nothing. You lose. Good day, sir.
Get your ass out of Knoxville. Nico, nobody bothered to learn how to say your last name, Molly Ollie Wollywops.
What is it with these quarterbacks with hard to pronounce last names and being divas? I mean, what is it about?
It's crazy. It's crazy.
I
What
woke up
happened?
Saturday morning, man.
I was laughing.
And
I was loving
I
it.
texted you. I think I woke up at like 9. Maybe I slept in late. 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock on Saturday. And I saw my phone and I saw this and I said, oh my word.
I mean, I was posting content on Friday, talking about how disgusted that I was that Nico was attempting to extort the Tennessee NIL collective. Now, not that I'm really broken up about idiots who are willing to give their money to a college kid who can just up and leave whenever he wants to. I bet those people think that strippers like them too, but I didn't feel bad for the NIL collective arm at Tennessee if they had actually given them given Nico their money. But I think what we saw this weekend, Cole, was actually a good thing for college football.
Wow.
It's terrible to see a mediocre quarterback think that he can demand and extort more money out of his school just before the transfer portal weekend opens. But his coach, his teammates, the collective, the university all said, nah, man, we are not going to be your Huckleberry. And I think that's great. Now, somebody's going to be stupid. Somebody will be stupid and will throw him a lot of money. He's going to be playing next year. Don't take this as me saying that I don't think that nobody will give him a shot.
So
somebody will.
The deal in total, Diesel, just so the Tolos know of what happened if you just came out from under a rock. It was an $8 million deal throughout his collegiate career. $8 million. I don't know if last time you checked, that's a lot of money. Nico was set to make 2.2 this season, was looking for a raise. He reportedly wanted $4 million a year for the remainder of the deal that was in place.
He was also reportedly thinking about holding out before their playoff run last year. And that comes from Josh Pate, who knows a thing or two. He's got a few sources here and there. So Nico was apparently threatening to sit out and hold out during the playoff run, which is the definition of shooting oneself in the foot, Cole. But nobody's backing him. Nobody that I've seen out there in the Twitter world. And, you know, Twitter will be as divided as anything. Yeah. People will say, oh, go get your money, Nico. You deserve this. No one is saying that. Everyone's calling this guy a moron for leaving behind a good situation at a good program that's built to be successful again this upcoming season, and just say, well, if I don't get what I want, I'm going to walk. Well, peace out, buddy. Don't let the door hit you where the good Lord split you.
You know, what's so interesting about this entire story, what's so interesting about what broke Saturday morning, Diesel, and again, Tolos, want to hear from you at 844-FAN-PHONE. That's FANFONE. Phone lines are open. Hub City Spartanburgers text line open as well. What's so interesting is nobody's shocked. You know why nobody's shocked? Mm-hmm. Was it a shocking story? Sure. Are we shocked that it happened? Absolutely freaking not, because we've been talking about this for years. We've been hearing from ex-coaches, pundits who have warned us of what is to come with NIL and obviously the portal. While this story in itself is surprising and took Twitter by storm on Saturday, nobody's surprised that this happened. Yeah. Because you know what? this is just the beginning. And I know NIL's been around for a few years now, but this is just the beginning of, I'm not saying, I don't want to call it the demise of college football, because people will still watch. It's still going to be great. We're still going to love it. But the demise of what could have been right about the sport, here it is on a silver platter.
Well, to quote Bain once again, I am inevitable. This was inevitable. The players'
100%.
egos and the teams of people that they put around them, and shame on Nico Iamaleava's father for allowing it to get to this place, you greedy sons of you-know-whats. I mean, shame on them for letting this happen, but it was inevitable that this was going to happen.
100%.
Players saying, give me this, give me that, or I walk. Then walk. We don't need you. Our program is bigger than that. And to that point, here's what Josh Heupel had to say to the media immediately after this story broke. And he didn't even wait for a question about it.
Good.
He just made the opening statement about what was happening with Nico.
I'm sure I'm going to get asked about this here in a second, so I'll address it on the front end. Today's landscape of college football, it's different than what it has been. And it's unfortunate, just the situation and where we're at with Nico. I want to thank him for everything that he's done since he's gotten here. That's as a recruit to who he was as a player, and how he competed inside of the building. And so a great appreciation for that side of it. Obviously, we're moving forward as a program without him. I said it to the guys today. There's no one that's bigger than the Power T, and that includes me. And they hear me say that a lot inside of that team room. Our coaches and staff, guys have been here over the last 4 years, have rebuilt this program, and it's built to win. And I say that as we're moving forward from today too. This program's ready to go win next fall. And as a program, since we've been here, we've won with a lot of different QBs. Done it historically in my career with a lot of different QBs. Some of those guys have been older, some of them have been younger, but we'll have a quarterback that's ready to go win and help us compete for a championship.
Well, the first half of what he said was a big load of crap. Oh, we want to thank Nico. We appreciate Nico. We thank him for all the hard work that he's. Shut up, Josh. Don't care about that. We don't care. That was him.
He's
talking,
got to say that. Yeah.
He's got to say it, but it's crap. It's a load of horse crap.
And everybody knows that.
Yeah, he's got to say that for the rest of the guys on his team who are also potential divas. Well, if he's going to throw Nico under the bus like that, why wouldn't he throw me under the bus like that? The second half is where that conversation got real. It's like, this program is built to win with anybody at quarterback. We don't need Nico. So I appreciate the second half of that conversation, Cole. Do I think this is going to happen again? Yeah, I do. I think it's going to happen again. Carson Beck kind of set the market value for starters at high-level programs, but that value that he got, because he got, close to $4 million this year, which is what Nico wanted for this upcoming season. But Carson Beck is also a proven winner.
Yeah.
He's a proven starter. Nico is average at best. You look at all of his statistics, Colin, I've got him. We can go through them.
Mm-hmm.
He was middle of the pack,
especially
in the
SEC
playoff
game last year. It was terrible.
Terrible in the playoff game.
104 yards on 31 attempts against Ohio State, to be exact, Diesel. I will say this, though. You just said two words, market value. If you as a college football fan out there today are not concerned or worried about the direction of the sport, I would simply ask, Diesel, to anybody out there that thinks, it's okay, it's all good in the hood, everything's going to be okay, it's going to be all right. What happens to market value over time? Can you answer that for me? Does anybody know? What happens to market value every year in the NFL and any sport? Market value goes what direction? Up.
Mm-hmm.
Market value is going to continue to go up for quarterbacks. When market value in 10 years from now is at $15 million a year, what will this sport be then? Because if you don't think it's headed that way, you're at $4 million a year now. You're at $5 million. He was wanting $4 a year, I believe, is what he was wanting.
What's to stop him a year from now from saying, you know what, I want 5, I want 6?
Oh, it's only going to get worse.
So then it becomes 20, and then we're talking about a quarterback, one player,
right,
making the total amount of money that universities are able to distribute or required to distribute to their entire athletic staff, all of the players.
So what happens to the NFL? What happens to players? You know how much Brock Purdy made on his rookie deal as a San Francisco 49er? Brock Purdy made $934,000. In the NFL, Brock Purdy made not $1 million, almost $1 million at $934,000.
To go out and play 17 games, by the way.
And take him to an NFC championship, almost a Super Bowl. I think he did take him to a Super Bowl. In 2022, Diesel, he made $705,000. $705,000. So what happens to everybody out there who wanted this for college football? And I understand that players are players and kids are kids, and they want to make another dollar. I do too. But what happens to this sport 10 years from now? What happens to the NFL 10 years from now? I don't like the direction it's going, Diesel.
Those people are the dictionary definition of taking something for granted. They just assume that the game will always be there, that the money will always be there, and that these kids will always be able to get what they want. Now, here's the problem, Cole. As you keep on increasing what it costs to run a football program, then you have to increase how much these schools get from their media rights deals. Well, now you have to start putting pressure on the networks to pay for it. And then you have to start putting pressure on the fans who watch it on television to pay for it.
And that's already happening.
It's already happening. You are the ones who ultimately have to pay for this stuff.
Yeah.
You have to pay for it. You're asked to pay for it through your television packages. You're asked to pay for it by getting hit up for NIL donations all the time. That's why I say, hell no, that's not going to happen. What's funny about all this, Cole? And to go back to what we were saying there about Carson Beck and the amount of money that he's getting to be at Miami, Mario Cristobal had this to say to players on his roster who also may be thinking about holding out.
We're not going to do that at Miami. And I say that without any hesitation. If anyone's thinking that, and they could be the best player in the world, if they want to play holdout, they might as well play get out. We don't want to do that. We don't want Miami to become that. Too many guys have sweated, bled, have laid on the line on that field to ever become that kind of player.
We don't want Miami to become that. You just paid Carson Beck $4 million.
Here's the problem with that. Look, what he said, what Mario Cristobal said is nice. It sounds good, but he has no – here's where we are. Here is where we are in the sport of college football. Mario Cristobal can say that, but Mario Cristobal has zero control on if that'll ever happen.
Yeah.
He has zero control on if that'll happen. It's great to say. It's great to say we'll never be that. But the problem is what starts at the top trickles and flows down from pro to college to high school. 10 years from now, this will not be 1 out of every 100 kids with this mindset, Diesel. It will be the common theme among all kids, all athletes, because they'll have NIL in high school. They'll have it from the time they're in 9th grade, and it'll be what they're used to. So you can say this is not the program we're going to have. Good luck.
Yeah.
Good luck with that.
I genuinely hope that Nico Iamaleava becomes a cautionary tale because somebody, like we said earlier, will pick him up. Somebody will pay him something. Nobody will pay him the $4 million that he wants because wherever he goes, he is an unproven commodity. He was middle of the road in the SEC. The numbers, I got him for you right here. 9th last year in QBR in the SEC. 7th in points contributed by quarterback. 8th in a quarterback opinion piece by 24/7 Sports, just a ranking of the best quarterbacks in the SEC. 9th in completion percentage. He is the definition of an average quarterback in the SEC. No one is going to pay him the $4 million he wants. So you play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. He'll be in a jersey next year, but he will not be making 4. He will not be making 2.5. He'll be making far less than that. And his greediness will cost him money. Let's go to the phone lines and bring in Landon, who wants to talk about this. Landon, what are your thoughts on Nico Iamaleava?
What do you think about him being crystal ball to UNC and Bill Belichick?
I think it's a good chance.
What do we think about it?
I think it's a good chance.
North Carolina is desperate. North Carolina will do it. Yeah, they do have a lot of money.
All right.
What do you think about it, Landon? That's the big question.
I think Nico's trying to go in there, and I think Bill's going to try and be a playoff contender day one, and I think it's just going to flop.
Okay.
It's not going to work in the ACC either.
Thanks for the call, Landon. I will say
Thanks,
it wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me if he landed in Southern Cal. If he was with Lincoln Riley tomorrow, it wouldn't surprise me one bit. If tomorrow on a random Tuesday in April we saw a picture of Lincoln Riley and Nico together, it wouldn't.
Yeah,
the horses that have the ability to go and pay top dollar, they're going to be in contention. Even though, to your point, he might not get the 4 he was wanting, the sad part is he'll get something. He'll get something. And JD and Madcraft in the comments are going back and forth, and I hadn't read all of them. My apologies, guys, but about contracts, maybe being the fix, incentives. I've seen that thrown around as well. I don't know right now that there is a perfect fix because, as Diesel and I have talked about so many times, the worms are way too far out of the can. And what are you going to do at this point? What are you going to do? You're going to have to reverse course and change the trajectory of the sport completely. There's got to be something done. There's got to be.
I genuinely hope, Cole, that nobody takes him. I would love for that to happen. I would love for this to make it look like Colin Kaepernick had job prospects just coming out of the woodworks. And I want Colin Kaepernick to look busy compared to Nico Iamaleava, because now he's doing it to a sport that I love.
Wouldn't it be crazy, though, to Landon's point, if he did end up in Chapel Hill?
I've seen a lot of crystal ball people looking at him. I mean, look, we're at the point of the season now where most of these teams, they've gone through their spring camp. If they're going to do one, they've done a spring game at this point. And so some of these coaches know what they have. They know what they don't have.
That's right. Yeah.
And they'll go to their collectives and say, "Oh my God, guys, can you get me 1.5? Can you get me 1.5 so we can offer it to?" Because there's only a handful of programs who have the NIL collective who will rapidly put together the kind of money that Nico wants and that he will accept at this point.
I retweeted this a couple of hours ago, or this morning rather. 247 Sports projected Tennessee transfer quarterback Nico to land with Bill Belichick and UNC, the number one player, obviously, in the portal.
I don't think Bill is going to be – he's not going to be daunted by this. Obviously, a guy that's been around the NFL and holdouts. He's not going to be shocked by this.
No, he's
North
used
Carolina's desperate, and they will come up with the funds. Here's a wild stat for you, Cole. Outside of Arch Manning at Texas, every single one of the 5-star quarterbacks in the 2023 class has transferred. Dante Moore transferred from UCLA to Oregon. Nico's transferring from Tennessee to who knows where. Hopefully the unemployment line.
Yeah.
Jackson Arnold transferred from Oklahoma to Auburn, and Malachi Nelson, here's the one that shocks you. Southern Cal to Boise State to UTEP. Which power conference is UTEP in? That's what I want to know.
Let's get into a little Clemson baseball. Diesel, some polls, D1 Baseball has them as the number 3 team in the country in the latest poll. Perfect Game has them at numero dos, number 2 team in all of the land. Jason Priester of the Clemson Insider joins us to talk about Clemson and their special season next. Well, the Tigers are shining bright in the latest polls that just came out earlier today as we talk a little Clemson baseball right here in this very segment with good friend of the show, Jason Priester of the Clemson Insider. Jason, if I would have told you back before the season started that midway through the month of April, Clemson would be number 2 in some polls, they would be number 3 in some polls like the D1 baseball poll, what would your reaction have been?
I don't think that I'd have been outright shocked. I thought this team had a lot of good pieces coming into the season, a lot of really good potential and a high ceiling. It's kind of just a continuation of some of the progress we've seen since Eric Bakich has been there. He's now in his 3rd year. So, I'm not caught off guard by this at all. I think this team has still got another gear they can hit. Actually, I don't think they played their best baseball yet, to be quite honest, and they're still winning at a pretty successful clip.
Jason, I'm going to ask you a 2-part question here. How does what in your mind is the science, the secret sauce, the magic behind having an entire roster that is hitting the ball well? I mean, maybe I'm asking for our friends who are Atlanta Braves fans because they are struggling to hit the ball well up and down that roster. And then on the other side of that question, how is Eric Bakich keeping this team grounded so that they don't let these top 5 rankings get into their heads and maybe give them the yips?
He actually talked a little bit about this after Friday night's game against Stanford. And I think I can answer both questions in one shot here. He said it kind of goes back to their preseason training and how they go about preparing for the season. They try to put their players in the, most uncomfortable situations possible, so they feel comfortable in those uncomfortable situations. We've seen it time and again when they have shown that they can come back from a deficit. They've been kind of become known as the cardiac cat since he's been there. But that's what I think. That's what I believe. I believe a lot of it just goes back to the mentality that Bakich kind of approaches his job with. It kind of resonates and trickles down to the rest of the team, and they're all bought in. They're all grounded. And it doesn't seem like the moment's ever too big for them. And I think it goes back to the way they prepare.
Jason, is it as simple as having the right guy leading the program? Because down the road, down 26 right now, the other in-state program not finding success on the diamond. In your mind, I know there are a lot of things that go into it, into this recipe that's made Clemson baseball what it is. But is it, in your mind, as simple as that, having the right guy leading the charge?
Absolutely. I've said it many times. I thought they got the right guy at the right time to put in charge of that program. For some reason during the previous, coaching staff that was there, that was just kind of spinning in its wheels. The program wasn't making a lot of progress. And when Eric Bakich was hired, man, it just kind of lit a fire under the entire program. Players want to play for a guy like that. He's a player's coach. He's got their best interests at heart. He's just a guy that I think young people can relate to. I think he's very relatable. He's always trying to help them improve their brand and those kind of things that can help them off the field as well. I mean, he's just one of those polarizing figures inside of that dugout that everybody kind of gravitates towards. And again, I think it just kind of trickles down to everybody on the roster. I 100% believe that it was just kind of like getting the right guy in the right place at the right time.
Jason Priester, the Clemson Insider, joins us here on Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson. I'm going to ask you this, and it's rooted in the performance that we saw from the Clemson basketball team in the NCAA tournament and that embarrassing first-round exit. And I'm taking these numbers here from your very own article. 15-1 in games decided by 2 runs or less. That's impressive to be able to come from behind and get wins in close ball games, but they're doing this against ACC competition, which is very good. But in your mind, can they do this, or do you have any reason to think they might not be able to do this once they get into a regional or super regional scenario, and all of a sudden you're looking across the diamond and you're looking at an SEC team?
I think it comes down to a couple of different things. First and foremost, it always comes down to the pitching. Is your pitching good enough? We've seen, Clemson starting pitchers be good at times. We've seen some of them have some rocky moments at times. They seem like they finally got their Sunday starter situation figured out. Now they've had a Saturday starter that's been roughed up a few times in the past few weeks. I think that's the first thing. The second thing is the hitting. Obviously, this team has shown they can hit. They have struggled at times to hit the ball with runners on base and runners in scoring position. It just comes down to those things once you get to the postseason, pitching and hitting. They're very good at playing defense. I think they've got the makings to be a team that can go on a deep postseason run. But like with any other team, you have to get hot at the right time. You have to get a couple of breaks to go your way. And we'll see what happens. They went to a regional their first year under Backets, went to the super regional their second year under Backets. The next logical step is Omaha, and we're talking about a program that hasn't been since 2010. That's obviously the goal. I don't know if they've got what it takes to get there yet. We'll get a little bit of an idea next week. Georgia comes to town. It's a midweek game. It's not a weekend series or anything. It's a midweek game, but we'll get a little bit better of an idea after that one. But I tend to think if they're playing at their best and playing at their ceiling, that they can match up with a lot of teams in the country.
Jason, you've seen this team as much as anybody has. What you mentioned the pitching. What has made Aiden Canuck, who is 6-0 now, who allowed just 2 hits and 1 run and 2 walks with 6 strikeouts and 6 innings pitched this past weekend, just a remarkable performance. In your mind, seeing Aiden all season long, what makes him so special?
I think it's the way he approaches pitching. It's the mental part. Eric Backett just talked many times about how Spencer Strider came to talk to the team. I think it was back before last season, and he was, just talking to him, and Canuck was taking notes, and some of the things that Strider does, Canuck was already doing. I think it's just how he approaches things. He's just got the right mental makeup, and then his stuff. I mean, it's just so good. He's got that change up that I've heard Eric Backett's call the air bender. I think that's a pretty good term for it, because that's kind of what it does. I mean, he can throw it against righties or lefties. I think he's one of the best pitchers in the country, and I think part of that is because how he approaches it.
Talking right now to Jason Priester of the Clemson Insider. Make sure you find him at JP_Priester on Twitter is where you can get a hold of his work. How safe do you think this staff is? We've had a lot of different conversations with a lot of different baseball folks this season saying that, college baseball right now is in a state where up-and-coming head coaches aren't really being hired from smaller schools. They're being hired off of big-time rosters and championship-level rosters. How safe is this staff right now? And it's really a question of how sustainable is this level of play for the next 2 to 3 years?
That's a good question. You don't ever know what to expect from any offseason to the next. It's kind of like the wild, wild west in all of college athletics right now. I think, a lot of these guys that are here now are here for the long run. That doesn't mean you might not see a portal departure here and there at some point in the offseason, but I think most of the guys that are at Clemson, man, that they are fully bought in. They're fully bought into Eric Backett's vision. And I think those guys are invested in trying to get the program back to Omaha and get it back to being recognized as the way it was back in the 90s, early 2000s, and the 1980s, when you would probably have called it a blue blood of college baseball.
It's interesting, Jason, when you look at Clemson's last 2 weekends against the teams from the West Coast, the newbies, if you will, to the conference, winning 5 of 6, certainly not bad at all for Clemson. 1 loss yesterday to Stanford, 11-6. They swept Cal. You seeing these teams in the conference for the first time, how does their style of play for somebody out there that may be a Clemson fan or, maybe just a college baseball fan, how does their style of play differ from what you're used to watching week in and week out from the ACC, or maybe it doesn't differ?
I don't know that it differs all that much. That team that came into Doug Kingsmore this weekend, I know they've had some tough luck in the past few weeks. They had lost 11 straight ACC games. But that's a team that had gotten off to a pretty hot start and was ranked at one point. And that's a team that can mash. They can hit the ball. They came into the series hitting over 300 as a team. Anybody that watched those 3 games are probably believing now that team can hit the ball. They had a guy that was one hit short of the cycle Saturday and Sunday. I mean, they just can hit the ball. I think they've had some issues with some pitching. But I think, they kind of fit the mold of the ACC. Maybe Cal is a little bit different. A little disappointing to see a team go out there and you watch it on TV and you only get the one camera angle and stuff. You would think you wouldn't get that in a conference like the ACC, but I guess that's a different discussion for a different day. But that would be my biggest gripe at this point. But it is a little weird seeing Clemson playing a team like Stanford or a team like Cal. It's just not something you're accustomed to seeing. So it does take some getting used to.
Jason, a little iron sharpens iron down the stretch here for Clemson. Louisville, a really good baseball team right now. They're playing really well. They've got NC State coming up. They've got Duke coming up. They've got a tough midweek contest against Coastal Carolina. In your mind down the stretch, what do you see? Who's the most likely team to trip them up?
That's going to be a very good series this weekend. Then again, like I said earlier, they got Georgia coming to town after that. Then they hit the road for NC State. I'm very anxious to see how Clemson and what becomes of that series this weekend. Like you said, Louisville is playing really good baseball right now. Clemson's got some guys in that lineup like Colin Priest and Josh Payno who have kind of were struggling a little bit. Seemed like they've been starting to come out of it lately. Colin Priest had a really good week. Jacob Gerald's starting to find his power stroke again. So it seems like they're starting to hit their stride when it comes to hitting the ball. Again, I think they've got I know BJ Bailey got touched up a little bit yesterday, but I think they've got the Sunday spot figured out. We know they've got Friday figured out. The question becomes, what do they do about Ethan Darden and his struggles on Saturday? Do they stay with him or try somebody else? But I think this is going to be a really good series, and it could impact where, what happens with seeding in the ACC tournament. The tournament's a little different this year. You lose one and you're out. So getting that double bye, just kind of like in the ACC basketball tournament, is going to be super important.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, man, that stretch that you mentioned, they go on the road to Raleigh. There are 3 games in Raleigh and then 3 games in Tallahassee against the number 7 ranked Florida State Seminoles. That 6-game stretch, we're going to know just how good this team is. Those are 2 tough series back-to-back on the road. Jason, your thoughts on the Clemson spring game now that you've had a little over a week to digest, if you will, what you saw last Saturday?
I absolutely love the new format, just having the ones versus the ones and the offense versus defense and the twos versus twos. I absolutely loved it. I liked it much better than splitting the rosters up. I thought you got a much better feel for some players. There wasn't a whole lot of negatives to take out of that thing. Although let's be clear, the spring games aren't the be all end all. I thought the backup Chris Vizina looked really good. The backup quarterback who's kind of been an unknown the past couple of years. We didn't see a whole lot of Adam Randall running the ball. That was something I was hoping to get to see. I think the freshman back, Gideon Davidson, looks the part. I was very encouraged by what I saw from David Ezuimume. If I'm pronouncing his last name right, the running back that redshirted last year still runs a little up high sometimes. He gets that cleaned up. I think he can add something to this offense. But I might have been more impressed with some of the stuff I saw at defensive side. It's a defense that really struggled last year, kind of did not live up to expectations, did not play to the standard. I thought they looked much better from a fundamental standpoint. I thought the tackling was better. Was very encouraged by what I saw from some of those younger defensive linemen, like Vic Burley, kind of been waiting a couple years. He's been, he struggled with some injuries and it's kind of slowed his development. Was very encouraged by what I saw from the freshman, Amari Adams. I think those are 2 guys that are going to be able to help that team this year. Didn't get to see a whole lot from the corners since they were in non-contact jerseys, but I think safety's still a question outside of Khalil Barnes, who steps up and fills that role left vacant by R.J. Mickens' departure to the NFL. But all in all, I thought there were a lot of positives.
Jason, how sustainable do you think is this 2026 recruiting ranking as of right now? And I understand that this is literally a house of sand, a house built on a foundation of sand. It's difficult to say, but no, right now with the number 2 class in 2026, what's different this time around that's got the best of the best 8 4-star guys right now committed to the Clemson Tigers that makes it different from before? I know Dabo said that, and I'm not direct quoting him here, that nobody is going to be able to pay more than we do when it comes to revenue distribution, but everybody can pay that same amount of money now. How is it that they have achieved or are achieving what they are achieving in the 2026 class?
I think a revamped effort on the NIL front. We saw it with some of the retention after the season. They excelled there. Coupled in with the new revenue sharing model that's expected to go into effect ahead of the season. I think that's been the biggest thing here. Clemson's not had when you're just relying on your collective and nothing else, it's going to be hard for Clemson to outbid a bunch of these other teams. Heck, it's going to be hard for them to make competitive offers. So it's much harder to procure talent, or if you actually get a commitment, it's much harder to keep them. I do think this class will probably stay together a lot better than last year's class did, just for that fact alone. I'm not saying you won't see anybody back off and reopen things up, but I don't think you're going to see some mass exodus like we saw last year. I do think that, that culture that Dabo's kind of created there at Clemson, I think it still resonates with kids. And I don't think Clemson's got to be the highest bidder in a lot of these things. I just think they need to be able to make competitive offers and then let the rest of the program sell itself. And I think that's kind of what we've seen with a lot of these guys in this current class. Clemson's not outbidding everybody for these guys. They're just putting something competitive together, and they let the rest of what they have in place there, do the rest of the work. And whether they stay ranked at number 2, I would probably say no. Dabo tends to not sign as many as most other programs do. So based on that fact alone, it'll probably fall off a little bit the closer we get to signing day. But I'd be surprised if it's not in the top 10.
Speaking of highest bidder, before I let you go, my last question for you, Jason, what was your reaction Saturday morning when you saw the news about Nico and his, I don't know if I call it departure, but his breakup with Josh Heupel in Tennessee?
You hate to see where this thing has ended up. Yeah. I know there are some people that'll never be on board with paying players money, but when these sports are generating this much revenue, it's hard not to share it with the guys that are actually bringing in the money. I wish we could get to something more stable so we could avoid things like what we saw with Nico. It leaves Tennessee in a bind. You're not gonna. It's like Dabo Swinney says a lot of time. You can't go grab a guy out of high school after spring practice. You have to depend on who's in the portal, and there's probably not going to be a lot of high-level quarterbacks in the portal coming out of spring. So it does put Josh Heupel in a bind there. He does have a couple of young good ones in Merklinger and McIntyre, both guys that Clemson recruited at least to a degree. But you hate to see where it's headed. Hopefully, by the time we get to the end of this decade, maybe we got some collective bargaining and real contracts, and it's a little bit more, I guess, professionalized, for lack of a better word.
He is Jason Priester of the Clemson Insider. Always appreciate your insights. Baseball, football, there's a lot to keep track of right now, but you're doing a fantastic job. And again, at JP_Priester is where people can go find you on Twitter to get a direct link to your work. Thank you for your time as always, Jason.
Thanks, man.
Always a pleasure, my friend. Thanks.
Great stuff there.
Yeah, look, I mean, to be able to keep all that knowledge in your head at any one given time, that's a tough job. It's a tough job. And that Merklinger, what do you say? Merklinger and McIntyre, that sounds like a law firm.
It literally thought the exact same thing.
When we come back, Cole, I don't know if a lot of our Tolos are aware of just how robust the compensation package is if you win the Masters. This may be a good reason for some of you to go out there and try to win the Masters for yourselves because you get a lot of perks. We'll go through those next. So much tradition, Cole, around the Masters. Everybody knows about the green jacket. Everybody knows about the champions dinner. Everybody knows about the money.
Never heard of that.
Yeah. Well, What rock have you been living under? What kind of rock is it? You're clearly not studying the right things. But there's a laundry list, Cole, of items that these players get for being Masters champions. And I don't know that a lot of people are aware of all of them. So let's go down the list of what all Rory McIlroy just took ownership of. It's really exciting stuff. Number one, he gets the green jacket. Everybody knows about that. It's tradition that started in 1949. It's got a gold nameplate engraved on the inside of the jacket. They get to only take it home for a year, though. It doesn't go to their closet. It goes back to Augusta after a year. Did you know that?
No, I thought they just got to hold on to it.
Yeah,
Where Taco Bell. They wanted to go to Taco Bell and then wear it to Arby's or Golden Corral.
Yeah.
Show up in your green jacket.
What a jip.
But,
you don't even get to keep the green jacket.
But with it being the Masters, that doesn't surprise me.
No. Well, so they get the jacket for a year, then they got to give it back. They also get their name engraved on the Masters trophy. That's pretty self-explanatory.
Yep.
They get a 40% scale replica of the original trophy to take home, that it's in sort of like a fold-out box. Like there's a split down the middle of the box. It folds open. It's got this little scale model of the trophy. They also get, Cole, item number 4, a 3.5-inch Masters gold medal, a tradition that dates back to 1934. That has a raised image of the clubhouse. I'd be willing to bet that's worth a nice little chunk of change.
Probably.
Never saw one of those on Pawn Stars, though.
No.
You'd see NBA rings. You'd see all kind of sports memorabilia. Never saw a Masters gold medal, though. I don't think anybody out there is hawking their medal. Number 5, they get a gold locket that is presented to them next year at the Champions Dinner. It's kind of cool. It's a locket that folds out in multiple different ways. That goes to the player's wife. I don't know what happens if they're not married. They get an invitation to the Champions Dinner for life.
That's the best part.
Yeah, that's the best
That's
part.
the only one I would want. Just give me the invitation to dinner.
Apparently not all the players even eat what's on the Champions Dinner menu.
That.
They can order whatever they want
That's
off of the
dumb,
Masters
man.
menu. A lot of people just order a steak.
That's dumb.
I better be the best damn steak you've ever had.
Yeah, but if you come on.
You should have to eat it.
You should have to eat it.
It's like being a child, you sit them down, you say you cannot get up from this table until you eat this meal.
Now we have to wait a whole year to find out what Rory's menu is going to be. We have to wait a whole year.
We all know that Ireland is really known for its cuisine, so I don't know exactly what he's going to serve them. They get an honorary membership to Augusta National Golf Club, and they get the option to bring guests anytime they want. Number 8, they get a locker in the Champions locker room, but because the locker room is so small, Cole, they don't get their own locker.
Yeah, I saw a video this morning of Rory walking through the locker room. That was pretty cool.
There's a YouTube golfer, and I'll find his name in the commercial break, who somehow works his way into all of these really, really high-end golf clubs into the locker rooms.
Wow.
And they'll give him the full VIP experience. Wow. He even takes his GoPro camera into the shower to show just how nice the bathrooms and the showers are.
Crazy.
So if you want a sense of what these places are like, I'll find the name for you. They also get access to a Champions only range. It's not a full length range. They can't go out there and bomb driver 310 down the fairway, but it does offer some privacy to past winners. It's just another exclusive little spot that they get to go to. They get a lifetime invitation to play in the Masters. Bernhard Langer played in his final Masters this year, and next he's going to officially retire. They get 100 official World Golf Ranking player points, 20 more than they get for winning the Players, 30 more than they get for any other signature event win, and double the number of points they get for most tour events. Plus, they get 750 FedEx Cup points. They get $3.6 million. It's probably more than that for Rory this year, but that's what Scotty got last year. And in 1965, Cole, Arnold Palmer won 20 grand. That's it.
Wow.
20 grand. They qualify for every major for 5 years. They qualify for every PGA Tour event for 5 years. And they get a special tee time on the Sunday before the Masters where you get to bring a special guest. This year, Scotty played around with his mom.
Oh, how about that?
That's adorable.
That's cool and all, but nothing on there about being able to fish the ponds. That's a letdown. Tom and Somerville would
Nobody
be
gets
disappointed
that
in
access.
That would be epic. All right, Tolos, it is time to overreact. It's Overreaction Monday. Text lines open. Hub City Spartanburgers text line. The phone lines are yours as well. Next. There is nothing like a good overreaction. That's what Mondays are for in sports radio. That's what we are going to do right here in this very segment. Overreactions may sound a little off the wall. They may sound a little off or over the top, if you will, but that's what they're supposed to sound like. They're not always supposed to sound logical. That doesn't mean you can't mean what you say, but sometimes overreactions do sound a little off the wall. So, Tolos, we are calling on you in this very segment. Every one of you out there listening, your phone will ring in 30 seconds and you'll be automatically put on the air. No, I'm kidding. That's not how it works. You have to call us, but you can do that in this very segment because the phone lines are open. Dan B. already on hold. I want to hear your overreactions. The Hub City Spartanburgers text line is open as well. The number 844-326-3663. Diesel and I also have an overreaction, but if you call the show, you get the fast pass. You ever been to Disney World, Diesel?
When I was a kid.
Yeah, I didn't like it.
I haven't been in a long time. I can't afford Disney anymore.
You get a fast pass if you pay for it, and you get to go in front of the line. So that's what Dan B is going to do to start us off on this Overreaction Monday. Phone line's already ringing. That's a good sign. Tolos, let's hear from you. What's up, Dan B?
Hey, guys. How's it going?
Hey, Dan.
How
are you?
Yeah, doing all right. Overreaction, dealing with NASCAR again, of course. Lots to unpack here. One, I almost went to the race. If I had known you were going, Cole, I would have probably went.
You could have rode with me, Dan B. You could have rode
awesome.
shotgun, but I didn't know.
That would have been awesome.
I wish I'd have known.
It's all good. Yeah, it was a last minute. Maybe I'll go, maybe I won't. And I just decided not to. But, yeah, I mean, the race itself, not the most exciting. It was the fastest Bristol race in, it might have even been history or since 1982 or something like that with an average lap speed because of no cautions.
Yeah.
No causes for incident except for one spin out, I think.
Yep.
Which is crazy because last year there were 50-some lead changes in the spring race. So it's like, what changed? Then there's this whole debacle about the tires that, they thought it was going to be this massive amount of fall off, but a 15-degree difference in track temperature caused them to last for 140 laps. I mean, that's insane.
So last year, DB, you're exactly right. I want to stop you there for a minute because you're right. I agree with you. Yesterday's race was awful. It was no passing, completely different from last year's race. To your point, I don't know if it was the temperature of the track, but I do think it had a lot to do with the tires because we were talking about it before the race yesterday, and we even heard members of pit crews and drivers say, we might only get 40 laps per set.
That's what happened the day before, the day prior in practice when the track was cold. It was ripping and shredding the tires and putting all the marbles up and all that, and so they were afraid it was going to do the same thing the next day, and they thought, okay, well, even NASCAR gave an extra set of tires.
10 sets total. 10 sets.
Yeah, 10 sets, including their qualifying. And then on top of that, you could use your qualifying ones. But it didn't even matter. They didn't even go through all their sets because I think it was 140-some laps on that one run.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I watched the teardown last night with Jeff Gluck and Jordan Bianchi.
Right. And
Jeff Gluck, he's just going on this tirade about how they just need to change the car for short tracks. And Jordan just kind of like, do you know how much that would cost? And then another option was, well, let's make Bristol not concrete. Let's make it asphalt. It's like, wow. I don't know, man. It's like NASCAR doesn't know what they're doing. That's what a lot of people think.
Yeah.
Fans and sportscasters and journalists like you guys, that they think that the higher ups just don't know what they're doing. People want to blame Goodyear, but come on, you can't blame the tire company. They're just doing what they're being told to do, providing what they're being told to provide. You can't put it on them. Everyone's calling for just give them more horsepower, but no one can seem to figure it out, how to make short track racing exciting again, because apparently it's not. But apparently, I
mean, Dan, look at the attendance. I understand the day race at Bristol is never the strongest attendance, but that was bad.
Yeah.
It used to be 160,000 sell out 30-some years in a row. I mean, but don't get me wrong. I did my final paper in college back in the late 90s was on NASCAR and the economics. And every racetrack sold out every race back in 96 and 7. Those were all the statistics I was able to use.
I don't know
Dan,
I
don't
don't
get anywhere close to that now.
To answer your question to how to fix the short track packages, I agree with you that it's awful when you talk about a race yesterday where there was no passing whatsoever. It was all about 100% about track position coming out of a car or coming out of a pit, right? And where you were is where you were going to finish. It's where you were going to end up. I think they got totally caught off guard with the tire wear yesterday. I think they were expecting it to be just rubber everywhere, and it turned out to be the total opposite. I don't know.
It would have been a great race if it had been.
It probably would have been a great race.
Just the fact that 15 degrees temperature difference outside, the air temperature difference was 15. The track temperature difference was like over 100 on, not only the difference, but the track temperature was over 100 as they were reporting, I think, in turns 1 and 2 at first, and like 80 in 3 and 4, and then as the sun did the thing and whatever. But just the fact that this 15 degrees difference from one day to the next can affect the tire that much, that
Jordan
kind of like...
Jordan asked about it, DB. You were talking about Jeff and Jordan's podcast. Jordan asked about it in the post-race presser. I believe it was Kyle's pit. I believe he might have asked Jeff Gordon about it, actually, now that I think about it. But I don't even know that the high-ups, the Jeff Gordons of the worlds with Hendrick Motorsports or whoever they may be, I don't think they expected it. So I don't know, to answer your question, what the answer is. I think more horsepower is the easy answer, right? That's the only thing they could do to in a short turnaround, but they won't do anything inside the season, so they'll have to look at it outside of the season and the short off season that they get. I would love a new car for short tracks, but that's never going to happen.
No, that's just too much to invest, especially when they're not making as much money as they probably used to be, in terms of fans just going to the races. But yeah, it sucks that they're still figuring it out as they go. And here we are in our third year of this car, fourth year, something like that. And that's I don't know. How does the fan interpret that? The new experts don't even know what's going to happen the next day. It's kind of crazy.
The new next gen has been more bad than good.
Agreed.
You know what I mean? Hey, thanks for the call, Dan.
Yep.
Overreaction Monday continues. Let's see what Dewey has to overreact to on this Monday. What's up, Dewey?
Yes, I think the Masters was crap. That Rory Macaroni boy, he crapped the pants. He should give his green jacket back. And that Bryson DeChambeau guy should go back where he came from. He's a petulant child. Golf is a bunch of nerds who wear little overalls and green shirts who think they're better than everyone.
That's certainly an overreaction.
It's a bit. Rory Macaroni. If we ever get access to interview him, we'll bring up your points and your grievances there, Dewey.
Well, he crapped the pants. He almost crapped his pants, and it was all staged. It was all so everyone can get all teary eyed and boo hoo hoo.
Spoken by somebody who regularly craps his pants.
Right.
Well, I did that today too. But anyways, yeah, the Masters. I'm glad it's over. Golf sucks.
Well, we got a month till the next major, Dewey. So enjoy the downtime while you can.
Have fun at Hilton Head this weekend, Dewey, watching the RBC. Appreciate the call. Dewey might be the only one that I've heard. I don't know. I mean, of course, you have 2 or 3 out there that don't like golf. But Tolo's, the Hub City Spartanburgers text line, is also available for you to overreact on, or you can be awesome, pick up the phone and call. And give your overreaction. Surely it can't be any dumber or worse than Dewey's was. Tom in Somerville.
I can't get any dumber than that.
No, that was dumb overreaction. The Masters was great. Let's see what. Let's go to Somerville, where Tom in Somerville wants to overreact on this Monday. What's up, Tom?
Hey guys. Hey Cole, you said something about having to fix the rubber on all the cars. Well, you know what'll fix that?
What's that?
Duct tape. You know what won't fix? You know what duct tape won't fix?
What's that?
2 things. My TV and Gamecock baseball.
Ooh.
Okay? Now, I've seen a lot of things in my life. But I have never in my life seen a meltdown on what I unfortunately had to watch this past weekend.
10 runs, Tom?
What's that?
Was it a 10-run lead? Is that right?
It was when I turned. This is what made it worse. I turned the TV on because I was over at a buddy's house and we were watching the Masters, and we had a couple TVs, and I took my TV, my garage TV, because he said he needed a little TV so we could have everything on. So I took my garage TV, and we had it on simultaneously with the golf, and the Gamecocks were up 12-2, and for me, I started paying attention to it more when the Gamecocks were up 12-2. So unfortunately, I had to witness that comeback along with 2 ninth-inning grand slams. So, and I don't even know if this is an overreaction anymore, but Paul Mainieri cannot coach baseball anymore. This was a downright pathetic hire, and it should have never happened. I was all for it, but my goodness, am I so against it now? It was a horrible decision, and of course, of all people, Ray Tanner made another bad hire. And we just need to cut ties, move on, and act like it never happened.
Hey, Tom, who gets fired first, Paul Mainieri or Brian Snitker?
Oh, that's a good question, Diesel. Diesel, that might be the smartest question I've ever heard you ask. And to be honest with you, I don't know who gets fired first. Oddly enough, I might say Paul Mainieri.
It's interesting, Tom. I was doing a little looking last night. They send the South Carolina sends their baseball notebook with the recap of the weekend every Sunday night, and I was reading it.
It was just a sad smiley face.
That's all it was. It's a thumbs down. Tom, I don't know if I expected to be saying this. I don't know if South Carolina fans expected to be saying this midway through the month of April, but I think that this team's worse than they were last year.
They're 2-13 in league play.
Yeah.
We might need to have a discussion. Is this the worst South Carolina baseball team in the last 30 years?
And to have the talent that this team has, Ethan Petrie and co. Ethan Petrie just keeps out there dinging home runs. What a sad way for him to end his college career. Out there having a good season, has a potential to become the all-time leading home run leader for the South Carolina Gamecocks, but do it on a terrible team.
Oh, it's frustrating. It's frustrating.
But hey, good news, Citadel tomorrow night. You'll be fine.
Maybe.
You never know. It is baseball. But other than that, that's my overreaction.
Good
the Masters, I don't know what Dewey was smoking, but the Masters was incredible. I'm not a fan of Rory at all, but still, all weekend, that was some of the best golf you could possibly ever watch.
But if you're not a fan of Rory, Tom, this might be the best thing to happen to you because now you don't have to listen to that storyline ever again.
I don't care necessarily. Like, I don't like the guy, but
why?
He played better than everybody else, and he won. So I got to respect it.
Why don't you like him, Tom? Why?
He just seems like he's stuck up and he's arrogant.
But you like Bryson DeChambeau, is that right?
Bryson loves everybody. He high-fives everybody. He talks to fans. He signs autographs. Roy just looks at him and just keeps on walking.
He just described Bryson and say,
Bryson. He every time he has an opportunity to talk to fans and interact with fans, he does it. Roy does the complete opposite.
Yeah, but Bryson only does that because he saw somebody else bigger and more famous than him do it first, and he said, "You know what? I got to get on that too."
And Bryson respects certain political figures that Rory does not, and that may also have a role.
This is sports.
Like
this is sports, Tom. We need to keep the politics out of sports. Come on now.
Thanks for the call, Tom.
Thanks.
By the way, Tom, if you want to go down that road, Bryson also is on Live. So
yeah,
that cancels out everything.
He also,
else.
he accepts money from Saudis.
Yeah. Texter says on the Hub City Spartanburgers text line, Bryson is an A-grade jerk.
Yup.
I'm with
Mr. whining about Rory wouldn't talk to me during the final
He wouldn't
round.
talk to me. I don't know why. I tried to share my Uncrustable with him, but he wouldn't eat it. I mean, come on. Bryson has 18 different personalities. He's 18 different characters, right? Every year he's wearing something new, and he tries to be this Mr. America. Pathetic. I'm so glad. I told you on Wednesday or Thursday, I'm so glad nobody from Liv won this thing. So glad. We didn't want Liv winning this year. We just didn't. Diesel, let's get to overreaction from you as well as me. I want to overreact with the Masters. I know that this does not happen every year. I know last year's Masters was good with Scotty winning. It was not as eventful, if you will, as this year's. But is it just me, or was this year's Masters the best sporting event of the last decade? Again, I'll repeat that. Was this year's Masters the best sporting event of the last decade? I don't know, man.
Oh.
It's up there. It is up there. It had the storylines. It had the redemption story. I don't know. There have been a lot. You know me. I love
quality.
I love a lot of different sports.
I don't know what else. I mean, Super Bowl's kind of dull nowadays. Let's be real. Super Bowls are.
I don't think it's dull.
I think it's the spectacle of the Super Bowl and the tremendous amount of build up to the Super Bowl. It's just kind of like, all right, I feel a little not jaded to it. Maybe isn't the right word, but it's just like a little overstimulation on the Super Bowl.
Yeah, the outcome this year wasn't good because it was, the Eagles drugged the Chiefs. The outcome wasn't good. I'm trying to think back in the last decade to 2015 per se, or 2014.
I'd say it's easily the most feel-good story in sports in the last 10 years.
It's got to be up there. Let me go. I'm looking right now, Diesel, to find out when LeBron, for me, came back down 3-1 to bring Cleveland his first championship. That was 16. That was, of course, awesome to me. It was probably one of the best sporting events I've ever watched, seeing them come back to beat Golden State down 3-1. So that one's up there, man. But I'll tell you this year's Masters is up there. I mean, it was awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of, and I'm not putting these on the same level here, okay? But I'd probably put this in the same stratosphere of like getting baseball back after 9/11, like getting major sporting events back after long layoffs, whether it be 9/11, whether it be major sporting events with full stands coming back to after COVID. I think those are moments that you could probably point to and say, "Oh my God, finally, we've got this moment that we can all collectively look at and say, I'm into that."
Yeah, the Saints winning it after Katrina was awesome
True.
too. But man, I don't know. Like I'm not even like a golf I won't watch golf again, Diesel, until the next major. I might watch it the RDC this weekend if it's on TV. And we're sitting here doing the show or something. But are you kidding me? I mean, the storyline that we talked about going into the tournament was Rory. It was what everybody talked about. And for him to crumble and get back up and crumble and get back up, get knocked down, get back up again. He used
like a Chumbawamba song.
It is. After the tournament, he used the phrase, which I love, stay the course. He did. He went through some tough times yesterday, but he definitely stayed the course.
Yeah, we'll talk about, could Rory do it again next year? But that's not going to be the prevailing storyline. It would be great if he did, but it's not going to dominate. Rory McIlroy will not dominate the conversation unless he is out there dominating on the course.
What if Rose would have won it yesterday?
Yeah.
I mean, we'd be talking about it today, but Justin Rose played good. It wouldn't be like, oh, this is the greatest thing ever. It just, again, we're going to get into the next segment. I know, Diesel, but you only get these so often.
My overreaction to sports, Cole, is something that I lived this weekend. My reaction is country clubs that are charging memberships of like $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a year to join can go bleep themselves. Because I was at a wedding this weekend that had their reception at this place called the Georgia Club. It's a country club in Athens, Georgia. I looked up today what the membership cost to even join this club is. It's $50K to join. It's $15,000. It's more than Augusta National.
So did you
which
join?
is crazy. Application is pending. Okay. They will never, ever let us on this property ever again. We'll never have a chance to get on it. But what pissed me off about this course, Cole, is we're finishing up this wedding reception, and it was beautiful. Congratulations to the happy couple and whatever.
Yeah.
But we're finishing dinner, and we come out, and there's like 16-year-old kids coming off the golf course after playing around. I'm like, there's no way in hell they should be out there. It's not fair. It's stupid that it's that expensive, and they can all go to hell.
Well, one of them's dad's a lawyer. The other one owns a construction company. I mean, you know where that money's coming from.
Mm-hmm. But it's just absurd what they charge. When we come back, Cole, on the other side of the break, the question is, who will the next feel-good story at the Masters be? How close are the other big-time golfers at maybe achieving what Rory finally did yesterday? Got to get to what some of you, the Tolos, are saying on the Hub City Spartanburgers text line, 844-326-3663. Cole, we've had quite a few responses to Dewey earlier, who said that the Masters sucks and it's not worth watching.
Oh, imagine
Texter
that.
asks, is Dewey an actor or is he special? That's a really good question. Texter says Bryson is an A-grade jerk. Texter says Tiger's 2019 Masters was good too. Yeah, it was. Seeing Tiger
really
come
good.
back.
Really good.
Let's see.
doubt.
Texter says, did Diesel just say that the Super Bowl is boring? Well, I think a lot of the events around the Super Bowl are boring, right? I mean, the halftime show, everybody says the halftime show sucks. Everybody says all the commercials suck. Everybody says that it sucks that the Kansas City Chiefs are always there. I mean, come on. I mean, people keep saying that every element of the Super Bowl sucks.
Well,
at some point, I
don't watch
it gets a little you burn out on some of those things.
I don't watch for those things. That's the answer. That's the fix. If you think those things suck, don't watch for those reasons. Watch because it's football. I could care less if they canceled the halftime.
Well, the games aren't even the games typically aren't great. I mean, I think it was last year or the year before. Bill Cowher said that the championship round were the last good football games of the season, because they actually play out like football games, like the timeline of events, how they play out. When you get to the Super Bowl, it's just a big over-the-top media spectacle. So let's see here. Texter says Diesel Augusta National is way more than $50,000. Well, I Googled it, Texter, and it says between $40,000 and $200,000. I don't know what that means. How is there a range for membership? Do you get a back rub from Tiger? Maybe you don't want a back rub from Tiger, but do you what are the special privileges that you get if you bump it up to the $200,000 mark? He also replies and says, look up Sage Valley in Aiken, South Carolina. Cost $180,000 to join. Wow. Okay, Texter, I'm not going to be doing that because I don't want to be put on some sort of special list. Like, who are these looky-loos trying to peek over the fence? It's Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson. You Tolos are doing a great job on the text line. On the stream, Madcraft, Dan B, a bunch of other Tolos chopping it up in there, but we want you to become a part of the process, and we want you to mix it up with the other Tolos. Join the live video stream, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Cole, we were just talking about the Rory finally getting it done, how special that is, but the question is, what next? Like, what's the storyline going into next year's Masters? Now that Rory has finally gotten the monkey off of his back, like, how long is it going to be until we get another feel-good story at the Masters?
It's going to be a long time. It's going to be a very long time because, like I said, I believe in the very last segment or two segments ago, these type of stories only happen maybe once a decade. And I know, you may get feel-good stories to you. It feels good to you. But in terms of the totality of what happened Sunday, it's going to be a long time. Compared, when you look at what happened yesterday and compare it to last year and you compare it to next year, those two, last year and next year, are going to be not good. And I'm putting that in air quotes because of how good this past Masters was. So to answer your question, it's going to be a long time.
Scotty Scheffler or any golfer could go on a crazy run and just have some unbelievable 4-day stretch where he's playing unconscious golf, right? It could happen, and that is a beautiful storyline. That's a great thing. But like, when it comes to Americans who are attempting the career Grand Slam again, it's going to be a while. I mean, Colin Morikawa, is Colin Morikawa that big of a story? No, not really. I mean, he's 28 years old. He could potentially, go on a run and have a great career. Justin Thomas, maybe. Xander Schauffele, maybe. I think Justin Rose is probably the next feel-good story, and a lot of people won't feel good about that because he's not American.
Sure. And I was about to make this exact point. My buddy Mark said, he texted me and said, Rory's been waiting 11 years to do what he done yesterday. And that's exactly right. So when you ask the question, how long is it going to be? Well, look how long this story took to develop. Think about it. What happened this weekend has been in the making for over 11 years.
Yeah.
I mean, it is going to be another decade or two, maybe three, before you get as good of a storyline as what you got this past weekend. That's why I'm saying yesterday's Masters, this past weekend's Masters, Diesel, was as good as it gets. And I know Tiger winning in 19 is phenomenal. It's the return to glory for Tiger. That's awesome. But it literally took over a decade for this story to come together. I don't know in sports, thinking of all sports, I can't think of, not just in golf, but in all sports, it's going to be a long time.
And it's extra special because it's the Masters, right?
Oh, it's the best one, yeah.
I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. My strategy, we have a dartboard here in the studio, and my strategy when it comes to playing cricket, which is the most popular game at darts, is to always go for bullseyes first, and then try to fill the rest of the numbers in, because the bullseye is the hardest one to get, right? So it's easy to put one in the big number 20 square. Those are easy to get. And then if it comes down to a pressure situation where I'm playing against somebody and they've got their bullseyes and I don't, then, I'm going to be in trouble because I have to get 2 bullseyes quickly. So my strategy for that is go after the bullseyes first. That's like getting the Masters first. But Rory waited for that for the very end, waited last to get the Masters. Who is approaching a career Grand Slam that could actually get it? Well, it's not going to be Phil Mickelson. He's washed up. He's too old to probably make a real push. He could probably have a good day. He's got 3 of the majors, does not have the U.S. Open.
Yeah.
So he is the closest to getting the career Grand Slam.
And he's not competitive enough.
Not competitive.
It's not going to happen.
Jordan Spieth is there. He needs to win the PGA Championship. That could be a special storyline there. But the PGA Championship is just, even though it's a major, it's not the Masters, right?
No.
It's not as special as the Masters.
And the other problem with that is Jordan Spieth hasn't been near the golfer he was in 2017, 2016. Look, I think if I have to pick one, maybe that could be a cool redemption story, Jordan Spieth getting back to dominance. But what signs right now point towards Jordan Spieth getting back to dominance? There are none.
No.
That's a problem.
Yeah, Jordan Spieth probably not going to get it done, though he is close. He just needs to win one more. Justin Thomas has won the PGA Championship twice. He could be an option, but he doesn't really have the same personality and the feel-good around him that Rory McIlroy had. Colin Morikawa has won the PGA Championship and the Open Championship, so he's got 2 more to go to do the career Grand Slams. Xander Schauffele has won the PGA and the Open. So, I mean, let's say Xander goes on an epic weekend and wins the Masters. Let's say Colin goes on an epic weekend and wins it. I don't know that their personalities really move the needle, though, the way that Rory did.
I'm with you. I've got my answer for you.
Mm.
It's not one of your choices.
Okay.
But my answer is better than a decade. But the next feel-good story, you're going to have to wait until 2030. The year 2030. Yep, 2030. 5 years from today.
Let me write it down and see if we're thinking the same thing.
Okay.
I'm going to send it to you in a private chat.
100%.
Okay.
2030, and here's why. In 2030, there will be a golfer who will be the same age as his dad was when he won his first Masters at the age of 21. Charlie Woods is 16. 5 years from now, Charlie Woods will be 21. Tiger Woods was one of the youngest golfers, is the youngest to ever win the Masters at the age of 21. So the best feel-good story would be 5 years from now, Charlie Woods winning his first Masters at the same age that his dad did.
I agree with everything you just said, but the thing that you said that triggers me the most is that 2030 is 5 years away.
Mm-hmm.
I hate that thought. I hate the thought that 2030
You'll
is
be on
rapidly approaching.
AARP by then.
God, man. It'll get to the point where I say I can't even do the golf the way that the young golfers do anymore. Oh, man. So, yeah, the question for you, Tolos, 844-FAN-PHONE, 844-326-3663 on the Hub City Spartanburgers text line. Is there a feel-good golf story on the horizon not named Charlie Woods?
Well, okay, I'll give you one more. Not named Charlie Woods. this is almost a cop-out, an easy answer, but yeah. If you're going to say not name Charlie Woods, the next feel-good story is still Rory.
Still Rory.
Tell you why. If Rory, we talked about it at 345, if the chains truly are broken, if now Rory can play with such freedom that we talked about, what if Rory played on the tour for 7 more years, right?
It's 35.
35. Now. So what if he plays for 7, which is doable, right?
Yeah.
Very doable.
I mean, Justin Rose, 44 years old, and he had probably the 2 most impressive rounds of the weekend.
Sure. So here's the deal with that. Phil Mickelson's 54. Mm-hmm. There's still plenty of years left, I think, for Rory. To answer your question, not named Charlie Woods, what if Rory in the next 6 wins 4 more majors?
Wow.
4 more majors.
That's dominance on a massive scale.
Back-to-back Masters. Next year, he puts the green jacket on himself. He gets revenge at the U.S. Open where he lost to Bryson last year. In the next 6 years, he wins 4 more majors. He wins 1 more this year. I'm not saying it's doable. It sounds outlandish, but it's not out of this world. That could be the next feel-good story of not comparing him to Tiger. Don't kill me. Don't kill me in the streets.
He's also not in his 20s.
He's not. But what if he, now that he's got that monkey off of his back, what if he went on to become not one of the greatest, one of the top 2, 3 golfers
like stratosphere
to ever play the game?
Upper stratosphere. And to do it in his 30s would be an even more impressive feat because, this golf is a young man's game, right? I think the sweet spot for an elite level golfer is between about 27 and 33. That's the sweet spot. That's when you go from young and brash and don't know everything. You got a little bit of veteranship under you by the time you're 27 years old. And then at 33, your skills slowly start to diminish.
What if we looked at it like this? Michael Jordan, Diesel, and LeBron James are the 2 basketball players that we talk about for being the best ever, right? Mm-hmm. MJ and LeBron. Rory right now in the game of golf is not MJ or LeBron. That would be Tiger and Phil to most people, right? Tiger and Phil to most people. I'd say 75% of people would think that Tiger and Phil are the MJ LeBron, right? You can throw a few others in there.
Or you forget about Payne Stewart and those high socks he used to wear.
Right. There are a few that you could throw in there like a Kobe that you say, well, Kobe was better than both, Michael and LeBron. That trumps. The same conversation with Rory. He's not MJ or LeBron yet. But at the age of, what'd you say, 35 years old? LeBron's 40. LeBron won a championship at 35, I believe. He could go on to really push Phil and Tiger in that conversation of, okay, well, who is the best? Okay, I just think that would be great for the game of golf because, again, we're not having this. Diesel, you know what? The reality is we don't talk golf in August and September and October and November. That's the problem. Rory could help us get there, and if he were to go on some great surge, I think it could be great for the game.
I genuinely hope this year, and Madcraft, by the way, says, nah, man, Phil isn't even sniffing this debate. When you said Phil is in the Jordan Tiger debate, or Jordan Michael, Jordan LeBron debate, I was like, huh? I don't know about that.
You don't think Phil's up there?
Phil's not there. Phil's not.
You don't
there.
think? Do you think Phil's top 5?
No, I wouldn't even say Phil is top 5.
I think he's top 5.
I mean,
I think Phil's 100%.
Phil couldn't sniff Jack Nicklaus's jock. Arnold Palmer, Gary Player, Ben Hogan, Tiger.
I don't think he could sniff Tiger. No. Trust me, but I think Phil's top 5.
I wouldn't even put him top 10. But I
what?
mean, he's not far outside of that conversation.
You wouldn't put Phil top 10?
No, I wouldn't put Phil top 10. Oh. I wouldn't put Phil top 10. In the gigantic stratosphere of elite all-time golfers, no.
That's tough, man. That's tough. I think he's top 5 for me. I think he's that good. Look, there's been some good ones, but
I mean, he's not even John Daly level good.
John Daly said that Phil was the best ever, though.
Well, he smokes and drinks on the course. You can't trust that guy's opinion. He's
I don't
hammered
know.
all the time.
I just think at the top of Phil's game, I think he was. The top of his game, I think he was something else.
Greatest flop shot hitter ever. I can give you that. I can give you that. He could put the ball on a postage stamp.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
It really could.
What he could do. And then he betrayed his country. And so he's out of my list.
When we come back, it is time to get you caught up on the top stories in sports. It's the Daily Wires next. So much going on this Monday. It's time to get you caught up on what we call our Daily Wires. The headlines. It's the top 5, top 10, top 15. Sometimes we have a lot of Daily Wires to get to. A good many today. As Diesel, we are 1 day away from history in the upstate. The home opener for the Hub City Spartan Burgers is tomorrow. They host Bowling Green at 6:35 p.m. Baseball officially back in Spartanburg beginning tomorrow.
Love it.
Love it.
Love it so much.
Sad
I'm jealous
news.
of everybody who's going to be there.
Sad news here, man. Former LSU receiver Kyron Lacey, who we all remember, who was found dead Saturday night in Houston, died in an apparent suicide in his car while being pursued by authorities, according to a Harris County Sheriff's report released on Sunday. Just awful. I mean, just absolutely awful news for him and his family and everybody involved there, Diesel. That's tough. Tough to stomach. Tough to even to read, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I know that he was embroiled in his own legal issues, but that's not a reason to take your life.
Yeah,
he's a young guy. There was still time to work his way out of it and be productive after that.
It's tough, really tough. Clemson, who is now 33-6 on the season. Say that out loud. That's wild. Took 2 of 3 from Stanford over the weekend, now holding 11-4 record in ACC play. According to D1 Baseball, they're number 3 in the latest poll today. According to Perfect Game Diesel, they are number 2 in college baseball. So one of the best teams in the country resides right here in the upstate. South Carolina, the opposite. They got swept over the weekend by A&M. Diesel, they're close. They're borderline of being below 500. They're now 20-17, 2-13 in the SEC. As Tom from Somerville delightfully brought to our attention, they lost a 10-run lead over the weekend. Just a rough time right now for the Gamecocks. Wofford baseball was swept over the weekend at UNC Greensboro. The Terriers have struggled in conference as they are now 2-7 in SoCon play. USC Upstate got 3 wins over the weekend, sweeping Winthrop, and the Spartans now 8-4 in the Big South. North Greenville, some more local baseball for you. Took 2 games over Limestone over the weekend on Saturday. Trailblazers now 36-8 on the season, 17-7 in conference play. 1 game over the weekend against Limestone was 13-5. Game 2 was 2-1. In case you have been under a rock, Rory McIlroy's long, painful wait for the career Grand Slam is finally over, Diesel. One of the greatest achievements of his career was as nerve-wracking and dramatic as you could get. 35-year-old from Northern Ireland overcame a shaky start, to say the least, but just a fantastic finish in the final round at Augusta on Saturday, defeating Justin Rose in a playoff to get his first career green jacket, or his first green jacket, and complete the career Grand Slam.
It'd be one thing if Rory had been dominating the other majors, but it had been almost 10 years since he'd won a major. If he could have kept winning the U.S. Open or kept winning the Open Championship and the PGA, you would say, okay, he's great in majors. High-pressure situations, he thrives. But you could tell, man, over the years, this has really taken a toll on him.
Mentally, man, it's unbelievable what it does to you mentally. It is such a tough mental game. The 2025 NBA playoffs are set almost as the play-in games begin tomorrow. The first round of the playoffs will officially begin on Saturday. Projected number 1 WNBA draft pick, Paige Beckers, is signing a 3-year deal with the 3-on-3 league, unrivaled. Sources told ESPN on Sunday her first-year salary for the 10-week unrivaled season will exceed what she would have made in the WNBA. Diesel, we talked about this a year ago with the possibility of Caitlin Clark. If Beckers is a top pick, she's set to earn $78,000 in the first year, but obviously with the collective bargaining agreement, it could be a little bit different. So interesting news there.
Yeah, that's I don't know how well she's projected to perform in the WNBA. I would assume she would have been a high draft pick.
Sure. The draft tonight, by the way.
Yeah, it's kind of sad to see great players go towards the route of a spectacle-based league. Not non-serious basketball is what I'm trying to say.
Going after the dollar, it's tough, man. In case you missed it, Saturday, Tennessee announced that they moved on from starting quarterback Nico Iamaleava eventually, with Coach Josh Heupel telling reporters that no one is bigger than the program. Florida State freshman quarterback Trevor Jackson plans to enter the transfer portal. Tommy Castellanos, who was at Boston College, is expected to be the starter. We interviewed him last year at ACC Media Day. Offensive lineman for Florida State also, Jalen Early, who started in 7 games, plans to enter the transfer portal. More portal news coming out every single day. Let's see here. Karina Groff, a former MIT soccer player named the 2022 NCAA Woman of the Year, died Saturday along with 6 other people, including members of her family, in a plane crash in upstate New York. So just some more terrible news there.
We're getting so many stories like this. There was a plane crash in Boca. There was a plane crash in DC. There's this plane crash. There's just it's far too common right now.
And one more for you on this this Monday. I'm going to turn down the music so everybody can hear me say this loud and clear. The really good team that's based out of Atlanta, the Atlanta Braves, who are really good. I'm being positive. They're 4-1 on the season, 1-9 on the road, which is okay because playing on the road's tough. We have good news. They're back on the road tonight, which is good news against the 9-7 Blue Jays, who aren't really that good. Grant Holmes is on the mound tonight for this really good Atlanta team. Everything's going to be okay. Atlanta's really good. They're on the road tonight where they're not good, but it's okay because they're going to be good. Braves baseball, they're 4-11. Did I do a good job there of being positive?
Yeah, I liked it, man. Okay. You weren't too down on the team. I think you kept it real enough to say that they could pull out of this at any time.
You're welcome, Matt Crab.
Yeah. This is a tailspin that they could pull out of any time they want to. You mentioned it. Let's get back to it and revisit the Nico Iamaleava story. Where could we see Nico going? Some of the options and likely landing spots that they're talking about. And those of you who don't know what's happening, we'll get back into the story and tell you all about it next. In case you've been living under a rock, you may not know what's going on with Nico Iamaleava, Flavin. Nobody knows how to say his last name. He can't be that good of a quarterback if 2 years into his tenure in the SEC, nobody around the country can actually pronounce your name. But Nico, former quarterback for the Tennessee Volunteers, has announced his intention to enter the transfer portal. Colin, we saw it coming from a mile away last week when reports were coming out that Nico was in negotiations with Tennessee's NIL collective arm for more money. And then we found out on Friday that he was sitting out and not in practice on Friday. And then the news broke early Saturday morning that Nico is entering the transfer portal. And not a whole lot of positive press has come out about Nico since this happened. If you're not surprised, the weight of the internet has not necessarily been behind him, considering the fact that he was middle of the pack SEC quarterback. Now, one could easily say, and then those who beat the chest and beat the drum of SEC, you could say, well, if he's that good in the SEC, if he's eighth best in the SEC, he'd probably be the best quarterback in the ACC this year. And there's a very good chance, Cole, we could find that out. Now, how happy would he be potentially taking a pay cut to go to an ACC school, or a perception downgrade by going from an SEC school to an ACC school? Well, that remains to be seen. But Nico has some options, and the pundits are already out there kind of scouring programs, getting a good sense of who thinks they're good with their quarterback situation and who maybe needs some help. So go ahead.
I was just going to say, imagine if 10 to 15 years ago, when we were experiencing the rise of Clemson, in terms of being a nationally talked about contender year in and year out, or go back even further than that, 20, 25 years ago, let's land somewhere in the middle of the Tim Tebow days and fast forward a little bit to the Cam Newton days, when we knew that players were getting paid. What would your response be to those out there if back to the Tim Tebow days or the Cam Newton days, whatever time period you pick in a decade or two ago, we told you that, hey, you're going to wake up in April of 2025 and this is what college football is going to be. This is what you're going to experience as a fan in terms of that money that's not being given. Well, it's going to be so public one day that you're going to be responsible as a fan for helping out. What would you have said?
Not only are you expected to buy season tickets, not only are you expected to buy the merch, now you're expected to put your own hard-earned money into a collective pool with other fans and pay your quarterback.
Yeah.
Pay your star wide receiver, pay your running back. And it's not like it's they're all going to be grateful for what they're getting scenario. It's if you don't pay them more and more and more every single year, they're going to split. They're going to leave you. They're not going to have any loyalty to your program whatsoever. See, I think the short-sighted people who were just gung-ho for NIL, they somehow believed, Cole, that players would maintain some level of loyalty to the school that gave them their first shot.
Well, that was real smart.
Right? That whole idea of you dance with the girl you brought to the dance, that they would think, oh, well, okay, the school's going to pay you $25,000 to go be a quarterback your sophomore year. And if you didn't have a great year, you should be okay with taking a 10% pay cut and only making $20,000. I'm not good at math here. It's like 20% pay cut and taking $20,000 this year. I don't think anybody in their wildest imaginations expected it to get to the $4 million per year mark, especially for non-elite players, as fast as it has.
That's a terrible mindset. Like, of course, to hear you say that out loud into a microphone and it come back through my headset and into my little old ears, into this big old head, to hear you say that people, they wanted to pay the players, but they didn't think it was going to get this bad. They didn't think what world, what planet are you living on?
Where do you think people don't have that kind of taste and discretion and humility to say, you know what? I didn't have a great year. Yeah. I deserve a little bit less than what I made last year.
You don't ask for raises at your work. I mean, to be so naive to think, oh, well, we should pay these players and it's going to be okay. Let's not have a governor. Let's just do it. Let's just do it so fast. I remember, and I don't know, this is like terrible to say. You know how when things happen, you remember where you were. Mm-hmm. I was living in Texas at the time. It was a year and a half I was out there at Easel. I was living there when it really hit the scene. I remember where I was the day a buddy of mine called me and said, what on earth is happening in college athletics? Mm-hmm. I remember where I was. I remember what I was doing. I was driving. I had just left a gas station and close to downtown Dallas, and I thought to myself, surely it won't be as bad as they say. I was trying to be a little, hesitant, maybe a little too positive. Well, guess what? It's as bad. Look, I want to be very clear. I am for players making money. I am. Cole, I'm for players making money, but the way we're doing it is not the way to do it.
Part of me thinks that this was all part of the NCAA's plan all along. And look, the NCAA, they screwed themselves by digging their heels on this for as long as they did. They could have slowly cracked open that dam and let some water out, right?
Yeah.
They could have said, okay, here's what we're going to do. Starting in this year, we're going to allow college players to make $25,000 a year. And we're going to, hold schools responsible for putting that money in a trust, and they get access to that money once they've graduated. We don't want college athletics, the school that you're attending, how well you're willing to play, whether or not you're going to go to class, whether or not you're going to show up to practice, how you talk to your coaches, the respect that you show to your position guys. We don't want all of that based on how much money you're making. So we want to take that element out of it, say you can have this, but you can have it when you leave your institution and go off to a higher level. We've set you up for life, right? Not your entire life, but you have set your. How nice would it be, Cole, if you had finished college up at North Greenville after playing baseball or playing soccer or whatever,
murals,
and come out of school with a $25,000 head start on life? Yeah. I mean, that would if for most people, if you go to a state school, that just about wipes out your college debt or a big chunk of it, right? Yeah. That would certainly be nice. You could start a business. You could
do a lot of things.
Put a big down payment on a house. You could be set up for life.
But instead,
they didn't do it that way. They just said, okay, hands are off the wheel.
But instead, the ones that aren't athletes now who went to college to get an education are the ones graduating, like myself, with thousands of dollars in debt to your name. But the way that it was being done previously under the table, if you will, the right way, I'm saying all this in air quotes, was where they were student athletes. They were getting paid illegally under the table, right? However, even in that system, let's go back, Diesel, even the way that it used to be, where athletes were getting paid under the table, but they were still student athletes, I don't want to say perception was reality in that case, but I am going to say something kind of outlandish here. I would rather go back to that. This is going to sound I would rather do it illegally than the way we're doing. That's me.
Lie to me at least. Let me believe that you still love your school.
Yeah, and like I know there were bag men. I know that I'm not going to throw out names, but there were people who gave money to certain players. I get all of that. But you're telling me that players were getting $4 million a year?
Well,
no.
it was the synchronized unleashing of NIL and the transfer portal at the same time. Either one of those things are bad, right? Both of those things are bad for the health of the game. I'm not talking about for players and those who need life-changing money. I'm not saying this is great for them. But to have the transfer portal open up to transfer as many times as you want and to have NIL money out there unchecked to the point where every school has wildly different amounts of NIL money as far as what their collectives are willing or even able to spend. To have this both happen at the same time, you've just created chaos, and there's no way to undo it now. Had you slowly let this thing trickle and grow. So
put rules on it.
Yeah. So back to the question at hand. Nico Iamaleava out at Tennessee. Don't know where he's going to go. The transfer portal officially opens on Wednesday. He's going to get snapped up, right? Somebody is going to need a solid quarterback, and he is a talented guy.
He is.
He is a very talented guy.
He's got a great ceiling, high ceiling.
Yeah. It's last I checked, it's covered in diamonds, right? Yeah. He is looked at now as very good chance he goes to USC, UCLA. I think both of those would probably fit his inflated sense of self because it's not a step down to leave the SEC and go to the Big Ten.
Yeah.
Probably a more of a step down to go to UCLA than it is to go to USC, but he's from Southern California. We don't know who's going to be able to put together the most attractive NIL package for him. I'd feel really bad, Cole, for a guy that played 2 years at App State, got himself another year of eligibility because he played at a JUCO, and Joey Aguilar, who transferred to UCLA to go be a star there, to go be a player there. If Nico comes in and just snatches his starting position away from him,
he's going to do that.
And he's going to do that
to somebody. I'll say this. There were signs, though. What's interesting, the more you read about this situation with Nico, the people who are involved and are close to him in the program are a bit surprised. There were signs like Diesel him last football season, not showing up to a quarterback film session with the broadcast crew the couple of days before the game. Just no-showed him, didn't show up to that. I read that this morning. There have been, again, what day was it you and I talked about him not being at practice Thursday or Friday of last week, right? That right there, from what I've heard and what I've read from those that really know the situation, it was over then, that Josh Heupel was not – and good on Josh Heupel here, that Josh Heupel, the moment Nico no-showed practice, that it was over. And you had audio earlier in the show of Mario Cristobal saying our program at Miami is not going to be like that. And I'm sure Josh Heupel wants to be able to say the same thing. You've got to set the tone. I don't know if you remember this playing sports or not, but growing up playing sports, they would always say, like, hey, you've got to teach your best player a lesson, right? Your best player even in high school. Maybe the best player on the field, but if he does something stupid.
That was never me.
Not me, and trust me, not me either. But if he does something stupid, what do? You got to pull him. You got to show the rest of the team that it doesn't matter how good you are of a player, you're still part of the team. And I think Josh Heupel in this move did a little bit of that. Showed, look, it doesn't matter if your name's Nico or Ryan or Jack. There is nobody that's bigger than the program, bigger than the UT.
Yeah, I mean, you say that, but these young student athletes, these kids, will have perpetually increasing levels of ego.
Oh, it's going to get worse.
It's going to get worse.
Yeah,
they got people in their camp who never played football, who are just telling them greedily, go get more money. Go get more money. You deserve it. You deserve it. You earned it. They're nothing without you. They're nothing without you. You got to go get more money from them. And that's going to keep happening. So that's going to keep happening year after year after year. I hope, Cole, and I hope these stories keep coming to light, and I hope they continuously go the same direction that Tennessee went with Nico, that when players try to extort their NIL collectives for more money, or they will enter the transfer portal, the answer automatically every single time needs to be, go. We don't want you here anymore. Go. We'll figure it out without you.
So yeast Diesel makes bread what? It makes it rise, right? That's what yeast does to bread. When you already have a culture and society of parents who live vicariously through their children, and you add in money, that's what's happening. That's what you're seeing. The effect that it was already bad. It's already bad in middle school. It's already bad in high school. And now it's bad in college. with dads being so involved, to your point about go get the money, whatever it is, it was bad enough. Now you add in dollar signs and zeros and more zeros. That's bringing the bread to rise. That's allowing the bread to rise, and that's a terrible recipe.
Well, following this down to like a dark but at the same time logical conclusion, you're going to have college athletes. It's going to be mostly football players making multi-million dollars, $2, $3, $4, $5, $6 million a year. They're going to be making more than their position coaches,
making more than the pros.
They're going to be making more than most coaches in college football. Let's be real. Tennessee quarterback makes probably more money than half of the coaches in the American Athletic Conference, which is absurd. And then they're going to say, I don't need my parents either. My parents are leeches. They're trying to take money from me. And, hopefully some of them are smart enough to figure out how to deal with it, but they're going to have hangers on. They're going to have leeches. They're going to have women coming after their money. They're going to have bad, gangsters coming after their money. Some of them are going to end up dead on the side of the road because they didn't know how to deal with suddenly having access to millions and millions of dollars at 18, 19, 20 years old.
Pick a mid-level ACC program, NC State. Dave Doran, salary 2.6 a year.
Yeah.
Let's laugh. Let's laugh. 2.6
Nico wanted $4
a year. I mean,
what's going to happen, Cole? And this is not a far cry. What's going to happen when the quarterback makes more than the head coach?
That's my point. That's my point. If Nico were to go to NC State, for example, he'd be making more.
What's Josh Heupel making?
I'm gonna guess.
Josh Heupel's making 9.
Oh my God!
Josh Heupel's making.
I was
9.
way off.
So look. His salary, let's say he stays at Tennessee for another 10 years. His salary is going to reach 12 probably at some point. What happens when the quarterback market gets set to $15 million? So now you got a coach making $12 million trying to convince a kid who's going to make $15 million to listen to him.
What's going to happen? The sport, the wild, wild west that you're seeing now is going to be totally out of control, Diesel, where people who had vested interest no longer have interest. People who spent money with IPTAY and all these other people, I'm telling you.
You're going to lose interest in your own school.
People are going to lose interest.
We never even got to the options of where Nico could go besides USC, UCLA. North Carolina, we had a caller ask us about that one. I've seen him linked to, this is just logically, not that he's had conversations. Notre Dame, their transfer quarterback right now. Oregon has the money. They could need a quarterback. Outside of that, I don't see anybody else being willing to spend the kind of money that he wants.
Him in the ACC, though, would be wild. That is for sure. Coming up next, we are going to talk Clemson baseball, a conversation we had earlier in the show with Jason Priester of the Clemson Insider. We'll have that for you in case you missed it next. you back before the season started that midway through the month of April, Clemson would be number 2 in some polls. They would be number 3 in some polls, like the D1 baseball poll. What would your reaction have been?
I don't think that I'd have been outright shocked. I thought this team had a lot of good pieces coming into the season, a lot of really good potential and a high ceiling. It's kind of just a continuation of some of the progress we've seen since Eric Bakich has been there. He's now in his 3rd year. So, I'm not caught off guard by this at all. I think this team is still got another gear they can hit. Actually, I don't think they played their best baseball yet, to be quite honest, and they're still winning at a pretty successful clip.
Jason, I'm going to ask you a 2-part question here. How does what in your mind is the science, the secret sauce, the magic behind having an entire roster that is hitting the ball well? I mean, maybe I'm asking for our friends who are Atlanta Braves fans, because they are struggling to hit the ball well up and down that roster. And then on the other side of that question, how is Eric Bakich keeping this team grounded so that they don't let these top 5 rankings get into their heads and maybe give them the yips?
He actually talked a little bit about this after Friday night's game against Stanford. And I think I can answer both questions in one shot here. He said it kind of goes back to their preseason training and how they go about preparing for the season. They try to put their players in the, most uncomfortable situations possible, so they feel comfortable in those uncomfortable situations. We've seen it time and again when they have shown that they can come back from a deficit. They've been kind of become known as the cardiac cat since he's been there. But that's what I believe. I believe a lot of it just goes back to the mentality that Bakich kind of approaches his job with. It kind of resonates and trickles down to the rest of the team, and they're all bought in. They're all grounded. And it doesn't seem like the moment's ever too big for them. And I think it goes back to the way they prepare.
Jason, is it as simple as having the right guy leading the program? Because down the road, down 26 right now, the other in-state program not finding success on the diamond. In your mind, I know there are a lot of things that go into it, into this recipe that's made Clemson baseball what it is. But is it, in your mind, as simple as that, having the right guy leading the charge?
Absolutely. I've said it many times. I thought they got the right guy at the right time to put in charge of that program. For some reason, during the previous, coaching staff that was there, it was just kind of spinning in its wheels. The program wasn't making a lot of progress. And when Eric Bakich was hired, man, it just kind of lit a fire under the entire program. Players want to play for a guy like that. He's a player's coach. He's got their best interests at heart. He's just a guy that I think young people can relate to. I think he's very relatable. He's always trying to help them improve their brand and those kind of things that can help them off the field as well. I mean, he's just one of those polarizing figures inside of that dugout that everybody kind of gravitates towards. And again, I think it just kind of trickles down to everybody on the roster. I 100% believe that it was just kind of like getting the right guy in the right place at the right time.
Jason Priester, the Clemson Insider, joins us here on Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson. I'm going to ask you this, and it's rooted in the performance that we saw from the Clemson basketball team in the NCAA tournament and that embarrassing first-round exit. And I'm taking these numbers here from your very own article. 15-1 in games decided by 2 runs or less. That's impressive to be able to come from behind and get wins in close ball games, but they're doing this against ACC competition, which is very good. But in your mind, can they do this, or do you have any reason to think they might not be able to do this once they get into a regional or super regional scenario, and all of a sudden you're looking across the diamond and you're looking at an SEC team?
I think it comes down to a couple of different things. First and foremost, it always comes down to the pitching. Is your pitching good enough? We've seen, Clemson starting pitchers be good at times. We've seen some of them have some rocky moments at times. They seem like they finally got their Sunday starter situation figured out. Now they've had a Saturday starter that's been roughed up a few times in the past few weeks. I think that's the first thing. The second thing is the hitting. Obviously, this team has shown they can hit. They have struggled at times to hit the ball with runners on base and runners in scoring position. It just comes down to those things once you get to the postseason, pitching and hitting. They're very good at playing defense. I think they've got the makings to be a team that can go on a deep postseason run. But like with any other team, you have to get hot at the right time. You have to get a couple of breaks to go your way. And we'll see what happens. They went to a regional their first year under Bakich, went to the super regional their second year under Bakich. The next logical step is Omaha, and we're talking about a program that hasn't been since 2010. That's obviously the goal. I don't know if they've got what it takes to get there yet. We'll get a little bit of an idea next week. Georgia comes to town. It's a midweek game. It's not a weekend series or anything. It's a midweek game, but we'll get a little bit better of an idea after that one. But I tend to think if they're playing at their best and playing at their ceiling, that they can match up with a lot of teams in the country.
Jason, you've seen this team as much as anybody has. What you mentioned the pitching. What has made Aiden Canuck, who is 6-0 now, who allowed just 2 hits and 1 run and 2 walks with 6 strikeouts and 6 innings pitched this past weekend, just a remarkable performance. In your mind, seeing Aiden all season long, what makes him so special?
I think it's the way he approaches pitching. It's the mental part. Eric Bakich has talked many times about how Spencer Strider came to talk to the team. I think it was back before last season, and he was, just talking to him, and Canuck was taking notes, and some of the things that Strider does, Canuck was already doing. I think it's just how he approaches things. He's just got the right mental makeup, and then his stuff. I mean, it's just so good. He's got that change up that I've heard Eric Bakich call the air bender. I think that's a pretty good term for it, because that's kind of what it does. I mean, he can throw it against righties or lefties. I think he's one of the best pitchers in the country, and I think part of that is because how he approaches it.
Talking right now to Jason Priester of the Clemson Insider. Make sure you find him at JP_Priester on Twitter is where you can get a hold of his work. How safe do you think this staff is? We've had a lot of different conversations with a lot of different baseball folks this season saying that, college baseball right now is in a state where up-and-coming head coaches aren't really being hired from smaller schools. They're being hired off of big-time rosters and championship-level rosters. How safe is this staff right now? And it's really a question of how sustainable is this level of play for the next 2 to 3 years?
That's a good question. You don't ever know what to expect from any offseason to the next. It's kind of like the wild, wild west in all of college athletics right now. I think, a lot of these guys that are here now are here for the long run. That doesn't mean you might not see a portal departure here and there at some point in the off season. But I think most of the guys that are at Clemson, man, that they are fully bought in. They're fully bought into Eric Bakich's vision. And I think those guys are invested in trying to get the program back to Omaha and get it back to being recognized as the way it was back in the 90s, early 2000s, and the 1980s, when you would probably have called it a blue blood of college baseball.
It's interesting, Jason, when you look at Clemson's last 2 weekends against the teams from the West Coast, the newbies, if you will, to the conference, winning 5 of 6, certainly not bad at all for Clemson. 1 loss yesterday to Stanford, 11-6. They swept Cal. You seeing these teams in the conference for the first time, how does their style of play for somebody out there that may be a Clemson fan or, maybe just a college baseball fan, how does their style of play differ from what you're used to watching week in and week out from the ACC, or maybe it doesn't differ?
I don't know that it differs all that much. That team that came into Doug Kingsmore this weekend, I know they've had some tough luck in the past few weeks. They had lost 11 straight ACC games. But that's a team that had gotten off to a pretty hot start and was ranked at one point. And that's a team that can mash. They can hit the ball. They came into the series hitting over 300 as a team. Anybody that watched those 3 games are probably believing now that team can hit the ball. They had a guy that was 1 hit short of the cycle Saturday and Sunday. I mean, they just can hit the ball. I think they've had some issues with some pitching. But I think, they kind of fit the mold of the ACC. Maybe Cal is a little bit different. A little disappointing to see a team go out there and you watch it on TV and you only get the one camera angle and stuff. You would think you wouldn't get that in a conference like the ACC, but I guess that's a different discussion for a different day. But that would be my biggest gripe at this point. But it is a little weird seeing Clemson playing a team like Stanford or a team like Cal. It's just not something you're accustomed to seeing. So it does take some getting used to.
Jason, a little iron sharpens iron down the stretch here for Clemson. Louisville, a really good baseball team right now. They're playing really well. They've got NC State coming up. They've got Duke coming up. They've got a tough midweek contest against Coastal Carolina. In your mind down the stretch, what do you see? Who's the most likely team to trip them up?
That's going to be a very good series this weekend. Then again, like I said earlier, they got Georgia coming to town after that. Then they hit the road for NC State. I'm very anxious to see how Clemson and what becomes of that series this weekend. Like you said, Louisville is playing really good baseball right now. Clemson's got some guys in that lineup like Colin Priest and Josh Payno who were struggling a little bit. Seemed like they've been starting to come out of it lately. Colin Priest had a really good week. Jacob Gerald's starting to find his power stroke again. So it seems like they're starting to hit their stride when it comes to hitting the ball. Again, I think they've got I know BJ Bailey got touched up a little bit yesterday, but I think they've got the Sunday spot figured out. We know they've got Friday figured out. The question becomes, what do they do about Ethan Darden and his struggles on Saturday? Do they stay with him or try somebody else? But I think this is going to be a really good series, and it could impact where, what happens with seeding in the ACC tournament. The tournament's a little different this year. You lose one and you're out. So getting that double bye, just kind of like in the ACC basketball tournament, is going to be super important.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, man, that stretch that you mentioned, they go on the road to Raleigh. There are 3 games in Raleigh and then 3 games in Tallahassee against the number 7 ranked Florida State Seminoles. That 6-game stretch, we're going to know just how good this team is. Those are 2 tough series back-to-back on the road. Jason, your thoughts on the Clemson spring game now that you've had a little over a week to digest, if you will, what you saw last Saturday?
I absolutely love the new format, of just having the ones versus the one, and offense versus defense, and the twos versus twos. I absolutely loved it. I liked it much better than splitting the rosters up. I thought you got a much better feel for some players. There wasn't a whole lot of negatives to take out of that thing, although let's be clear, the spring games aren't the be-all, end-all. I thought the backup, Chris Vazina, looked really good, the backup quarterback who's kind of been an unknown the past couple of years. We didn't see a whole lot of Adam Randall running the ball. That was something I was hoping to get to see. I think the freshman back, Gideon Davidson, looks the part. I was very encouraged by what I saw from David Ezuimume, if I'm pronouncing his last name right. The running back that redshirted last year still runs a little up high sometimes. He gets that cleaned up. I think he can add something to this offense. But I might have been more impressed with some of the stuff I saw on the defensive side. It's a defense that really struggled last year, kind of did not live up to expectations, did not play to the standard. I thought they looked much better from a fundamental standpoint. I thought the tackling was better. Was very encouraged by what I saw from some of those younger defensive linemen, like Vic Burley, kind of been waiting a couple years. He's been, he struggled with some injuries and it's kind of slowed his development. Was very encouraged by what I saw from the freshman, Amari Adams. I think those are 2 guys that are going to be able to help that team this year. Didn't get to see a whole lot from the corners since they were in non-contact jerseys, but I think safety's still a question outside of Khalil Barnes, who steps up and fills that role left vacant by R.J. Mickens' departure to the NFL. But all in all, I thought there were a lot of positives.
Jason, how sustainable do you think is this 2026 recruiting ranking as of right now? And I understand that this is literally a house of sand, a house built on a foundation of sand. It's difficult to say. But no, right now with the number 2 class in 2026, what's different this time around that's got the best of the best, 8 4-star guys right now committed to the Clemson Tigers that makes it different from before? I know Dabo said that, and I'm not direct quoting him here, that that nobody is going to be able to pay more than we do when it comes to revenue distribution, but everybody can pay that same amount of money now. How is it that they have achieved or are achieving what they are achieving in the 2026 class?
I think a revamped effort on the NIL front. We saw it with some of the retention after the season. They excelled there. Coupled in with the new revenue sharing model that's expected to go into effect ahead of the season. I think that's been the biggest thing here. Clemson's not had when you're just relying on your collective and nothing else, it's going to be hard for Clemson to outbid a bunch of these other teams. Heck, it's going to be hard for them to make competitive offers. So it's much harder to procure talent, or if you actually get a commitment, it's much harder to keep them. I do think this class will probably stay together a lot better than last year's class did, just for that fact alone. I'm not saying you won't see anybody back off and reopen things up, but I don't think you're going to see some mass exodus like we saw last year. I do think that, that culture that Dabo's kind of created there at Clemson, I think it still resonates with kids. And I don't think Clemson's got to be the highest bidder in a lot of these things. I just think they need to be able to make competitive offers and then let the rest of the program sell itself. And I think that's kind of what we've seen with a lot of these guys in this current class. Clemson's not outbidding everybody for these guys. They're just putting something competitive together, and they let the rest of what they have in place there, do the rest of the work. And whether they stay ranked at number 2, I would probably say no. Dabo tends to not sign as many as most other programs do. So based on that fact alone, it'll probably fall off a little bit the closer we get to signing day. But I'd be surprised if it's not in the top 10.
Speaking of highest bidder, before I let you go, my last question for you, Jason, what was your reaction Saturday morning when you saw the news about Nico and his, I don't know if I call it departure, but his breakup with Josh Heupel in Tennessee?
You hate to see where this thing has ended up. Yeah. I know there are some people that'll never be on board with paying players money, but when these sports are generating this much revenue, it's hard not to share it with the guys that are actually bringing in the money. I wish we could get to something more stable so we could avoid things like what we saw with Nico. It leaves Tennessee in a bind. You're not gonna. It's like Dabo Swinney says a lot of time. You can't go grab a guy out of high school after spring practice. You have to depend on who's in the portal, and there's probably not going to be a lot of high-level quarterbacks in the portal coming out of spring. So it does put Josh Heupel in a bind there. He does have a couple of young good ones in Merklinger and McIntyre, both guys that Clemson recruited at least to a degree. But you hate to see where it's headed. Hopefully, by the time we get to the end of this decade, maybe we got some collective bargaining and real contracts, and it's a little bit more, I guess, professionalized, for lack of a better word.
He is Jason Priester of the Clemson Insider. Always appreciate your insights. Baseball, football, there's a lot to keep track of right now, but you're doing a fantastic job. And again, at JP_Priester is where people can go find you on Twitter to get a direct link to your work. Thank you for your time as always, Jason.
Thanks, man.
Always a pleasure, my friend.
Thanks. Great stuff there.
Yeah, look, I mean, to be able to keep all that knowledge in your head at any one given time, that's a tough job. It's a tough job. And that Merklinger, what do you say, Merklinger and McIntyre, that sounds like a law firm.
Literally, it's all the exact same thing.
If you work a 9 to 5, but you think you know better than career coaches making 100 times your salary, you're listening to the right show.
This is Wire to Wire with Cole, Bryson, and Diesel on the Fan Upstate. I'm Chuck Sanders. Here's the Sports Flash presented by Progressive.
College baseball on Sunday. Stanford beat Clemson 11-6. That snapped the Tigers' 8-game winning streak. USC Upstate scored a 17-1 win over Winthrop in 7 innings. Coastal Carolina 4-2 over Georgia State. Delaware beat the College of Charleston 11-1 in 8 innings. UNC Greensboro 4-1 over Wofford. Stanford beat the Citadel 8-5. South Carolina baseball was swept in a 3-game series at Texas A&M. The Rays beat the Braves 8-3 on Sunday. That drops Atlanta to 4-11 overall, just 1-9 away from home. Kyle Larson won the Cup Series race at Bristol Motor Speedway on Sunday. He led 411 of 500 laps. He swept both stages. It was his second win of the season, second straight at Bristol, and the 31st of his career.
Download the Odyssey app, search the Fan Upstate, and listen anywhere on your phone. I'm Chuck Sanders. That's the Sports Flash on the Fan Upstate.
My friends swim no matter the season, but my moderate to severe plaque psoriasis can sometimes take me out of the moment. Now, thanks to Skyrizi and clear skin, count me in. With Skyrizi, Risankizumab Riza, a prescription-only 150 milligram injection for adults who are candidates for systemic or phototherapy. 3 out of 4 people achieve 90% clear skin at 4 months.
Don't use if allergic to Skyrizi. Serious allergic reactions and an increased risk of infections or a lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check for infection and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms such as fever, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, or if you plan to or recently received a vaccine.
Thanks to Skyrizi, there's nothing on my skin, and that means everything. Ask your doctor today about Skyrizi, the #1 dermatologist-prescribed biologic in psoriasis, and visit skyrizi.com or call 1-866-SKY-RIZZY to learn more.
What's that sound? That's the sound of Downy Unstoppable scent beads going into your washing machine and giving your clothes freshness that lasts all day long. There it is again. It's like music to your ears, or more like music to your nose. That freshness is irresistible. Let's get a Downy Unstoppables bottle shake. And now a sniff solo. Nice. With Downy Unstoppables, you just toss, wash, wow, for all-day freshness.
Every morning, we rise and shine, make breakfast, and brush away the night's rest. These routines help us start the day off right. Nature-Made vitamins are a simple step in that daily care regimen. Multivitamins with daily essentials, clinically studied probiotics for gut health support, magnesium to help relax the body. Nature-Made is made to care for you every day. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Tonight, expect mostly clear skies with a low of 60.
Weather brought to you by Staples. Your local Staples store has hot deals and super low prices throughout the store on everything for your business. Save even more with the Easy Rewards program at Staples.
Your morning jolt of sports. It's the Rob Brown Show.
I was a snake. A lot of people don't know that Aurelian Smith, Jake's original name, is afraid of snakes. Literally, we're both looking through the door, one head on top of the other, and he gets up and goes, where you going? Get him out. I'll be back in the morning. And he's gone.
Hold on. Jake the Snake Roberts is afraid of snakes. My childhood is a lie.
Don't hit snooze. Hit play. The Rob Brown Show. Now morning 6 to 10 on The Fan.
The Fan Upstate.
From the Ingalls Market Studio. The Fan. The Fan.
Upstate. 97.7 FM Greenville. 97.1 FM Spartanburg.
Always live on the free Odyssey app. Now, the Infinity Sports Network. Breaking news? We break the mold.
This is Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson on the Fan Upstate.
never be in the ACC. Their academic standards are too low. And that's the reason why you didn't bring a school that prioritizes football first.
I kind of like it. I
like
really
West
do.
Virginia in the ACC.
It's a wild card.
I like
it. It is a wild card, to say the least.
They send Nebraska back to the Big 12 where they ought to be. They send Cal, Stanford, Arizona, ASU, Washington, Southern Cal, Oregon, and UCLA back to where they came from, back to the Big 12.
Send them back.
I love it. The only weird one, Cole, is that they put Delaware in the Sun Belt.
That is weird.
Make that one make
weird.
sense.
There's no doubt. That one's weird.
Odd. I love the Sun Belt as it's currently constructed. As being a fan of a Sun Belt school, I don't want to change it at all. Certainly don't want the blue hose of Delaware.
I thought we were talking about Presbyterian College for a minute.
H-O-S-E.
Yeah, right. I get you. Tuesday, Wire to Wire. That's tomorrow. As for today, we're done.